Welcome to once again the show with the audacity to have too good of an intro of intro music. Literally just like, how dare we? Because now I don't even want to actually do the show. I just want to listen to that music and sort of have a dance party. But have a show we will. Welcome everybody. It is February 14th, 2023. That seems like the right year, right? Yeah. Yeah, that's the right one. And it is a very special day because it is, and this is true, the 5-year anniversary. I know you all thought I was going to say Valentine's Day. You're nuts. Today is the 5-year anniversary of when I, Jimmy Snow, started a channel called, actually, I wouldn't say started the channel, published the 5-year anniversary of me being a YouTuber, essentially. 5 years ago today, I released my first episodes, 3. I did 3 at a time because I wanted, here's the funny thing about that. I was thinking tactically from the very beginning. I talked about this on a show I did the other day with Skeptic Stacy? No. I can't remember how it all fits together, but Skeptic Stacy, I'll call her. She's amazing. I talked about like, I 100% was that sort of like kind of arrogant douche. I was an arrogant douche. Anyway, I was 100% that arrogant douche that was like, my channel's gonna do well. It's gonna succeed. It'll just be a matter of time and work and stuff. I remember like my brother trying to tamper my expectations, not David, the one that you've all met, but another brother, the one that I live near now here in Texas. And I had I had a conversation with him, and he wanted to tamper my expectations about like how much of it is luck and all that sort of stuff. And I didn't disagree, but I went in expecting to do well, and I wasn't going to let anybody take that away from me. And now it's one of those things where I may have entirely gotten lucky and done well for all the reasons that I didn't think would be the reasons I did well. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I get to go, hey, you remember when you thought I shouldn't expect for this YouTube thing to pan out? Well, who's laughing now? Well, in a way, he still could, because then the question becomes, do I enjoy being a YouTuber? Which is a very complicated answer. And I will say, I find it worth it to be a YouTuber, especially with this new thing that we're working on, new thing we're building. I announced last night, by the way, this is the show Cus I Wanna. I'm Jimmy Snow. Let's see if this thing is ready for it. Yep, Jimmy Snow. This is Cus I Wanna. Usually I'm going to rant a little bit, rip off a little bit of the hang up like Matt does, where I just start by talking about what's on my mind right now. Then we're going to get into calls. I would be very excited to debate anybody on, really most topics are on are possible, but sorry, I'm producing at the same time, but whatever topic. But I'd really love to debate theists about theism, hear why you believe in God, and sort of run through that kind of thing. The 5 years has been an absolute roller coaster. For the first year, I was doing 2 jobs at the same time. I was still maintaining what I believed at the time to be my career as a photographer. Things had been taking off as I had gotten into some commercial stuff, and especially like working with real estate agents, sometimes from the the best money was always in shooting like headshots for ads and stuff for real estate agents, but also working on some like 3D virtual tours and shit like that. Anyway, yes, the line is closing in on 80,000. So the line is not where, for those who might not be familiar but have a vague understanding that this is my channel, the line is not the first channel of mine. I have a channel. It's got like 350 plus thousand subscribers. I don't remember what the exact number is. I don't really keep track anymore. I used to be obsessive about it. I need to be posting there more, but it's just called Jimmy Snow. It used to be called Dear Mr. Atheist. Now Mr. Atheist. We're currently on the line closing in on 80,000 subscribers. I'd really love to get that silver play button for the line for everybody here who contributes and everything before long. But this one admittedly has slower subscriber growth despite having high, operating at a level that other channels, we operate at a level higher than channels with more subscribers than us have. So do hit that subscribe button. That would be great. Cause we'd love to, it's the silver play button's a nice feeling, but you also unlock attention and features with a all of this. Yeah, that's really funny. So somebody, it got deleted. I don't care. If this person wants to talk shit about me, they can talk shit about me. 80,000 subscribers. No, not in 5 years. 80,000 subscribers in 3 years on a channel which we don't really push subscribing on. We don't often mention that you should subscribe. The channel that I had for 5 years, that I've had for 5 years, and by the way, I've been very neglectful of that channel for like the last year. It needs to have more content. It has, again, over 350,000 subscribers. And listen, I'll still put my numbers up against yours, shit talker, and the random person who wishes they were where I was right now in the chat. Enjoy yourself, though. I don't give a fuck. And the fact of the matter is subscribers don't count or matter. They aren't what you get paid on. There are reasons why on my end I'd like more. They aren't, but view time and number of views are what counts. And again, we perform at an extremely high level on both of those, much higher than what you typically see out of a channel with a certain number of subscriptions. So literally, like, I give a shit. No, you don't have to hide. Don't, somebody unhide the, one of the mods. Go ahead and unhide the shit talker. Cause I'm like, I'm fine. I'm fucking, I see that they were capsing. You obviously you can keep a lid on them and stuff, but you can give them another chance. You still have to follow the rules. Just because I'm telling them they can unhide you doesn't mean you don't get to now circumvent the rules. But so stick to the rules. But I don't give a fuck if somebody wants to tell me I'm arrogant or I'm need so badly to be liked or whatever shit. I don't give a fuck. Just you can't all caps. That's like one of the things that you got to know. You can't all caps. Anyway, let's see. Where was I? What was I talking about? So 5 years, it's been wild. And now my focus is on, so the line, when I launched it 3 years ago, I launched it where I did a lot of line stuff at first, and then I took a break and basically I had a team at that time, and I basically let the team run it with other people for a good long time. And then a few months ago, I decided, like, you know what? It's time to double down on the line. I've got 2 channels, Jimmy Snow and the Line. I can't do both and make sure that both succeed in a reasonable timeline. I need to focus on one. And I chose the Line at that time while still doing enough to get by on Jimmy Snow. And now we're getting to the point where this is building up to a point that I like, that I can see myself not needing to be a part of every single episode starting soon. Because right now, even if I'm not on an episode and even if you don't see my face, I'm probably the one running it. Last Wednesday was the first time we had a producer that wasn't me in a good long time, several months, when David left back in July or whatever it was. A good long time, but also since the new model has come out, because everything obviously here has changed. We've made everything a lot sharper, run a lot better. Now that's funny because in the last few days, things went to shit because there were updates both to the software which I use to manage everything. It's called vMix. If you want to see, actually, if you become a patron, patreon.com/calltheline, there is a behind the scenes and I just show you how I run the show. Because I don't care. I'm an open book. I'm not going to keep these are my industry secrets. I don't want anyone to replicate what I do. The reason why you can't replicate what I do is because part of what I do is how good I am at this. So until you're as good as me at producing, you're not going to be able to just do what I do anyway. So I don't care to show you behind the thing. And then if you are that good, I'm probably going to try and bring you on our team. Like, I don't give a fuck. Like, fucking Christ. Everybody wins if I just share my secrets, I feel. Even if you are as good as me at it. And so, no, don't free all trolls. But again, don't use all caps. Your message will get deleted. I'm having an HEB 1877 mineral water. Anyway, the patreon.com if you want to see that. Oh, also patreon.com if you want to go to the Zoom meeting with Forrest and I this Sunday. It'll be at 7 p.m. Central Time. If you want to hang out with Forrest and I, we'll do a 1 to 2 hour Zoom meeting. I'm going to be exhausted, but luckily Forrest is such a star. Like, he'll be able to take most of it. We're doing a Zoom meeting with patrons, any level, $5 or more. Patreon.com/calltheline. Check that out. Anyway, we'll probably jump into calls here pretty quick. I don't see a reason why to hold back on getting some calls in. Really want to hear from theists. I would love to hear a theist call in and tell me why they believe in God. Was somebody defending that I'm not arrogant? I actually, yeah, I probably am a little arrogant. I probably do have an exaggerated, so wait, Jimmy isn't arrogant because to be arrogant, you need an exaggerated sense of one's own importance or abilities. I don't know if I am or not, because I don't know whether or not my sense of own importance or abilities are exaggerated or not. I think that the line is the best thing I've ever done. It isn't the most fun I've ever had. It's not the thing I've enjoyed the most. Nothing gave me as much creative fulfillment as the Sometime Show did, but that time has passed for now. It'll come back one day. But for now, that time has passed. But the line has the biggest impact of anything. It's the thing that should be my, if I were to die tomorrow, I want the line to be my legacy, not Dear Mr. Atheist, not anything else. I want it to be the line. Here's hoping. Anyway, sorry, that was a dark fucking joke. But I don't know. It could be inflated. I'm impatient. I'll tell you that much. I don't much enjoy listening to people who aren't honestly interacting. I am dismissive a lot of people give a lot of unsolicited advice on how to run things, and they feel I should listen and I feel I shouldn't, and that's probably arrogant. There's certainly a line. There's certainly a line where it's appropriate that I do that, but I probably overcorrect, and I would say that's into arrogance. I talked about this the other day. I've been talking about this on a couple of shows. I'm done pretending that the human experience isn't selfish. Of course we all have some selfishness, and of course we all have ego. People want me to reconsider the phrasing of stuff because when I'm referring to the ego, id, and superego, yes, that's using a lot of Freudian phrasing. There are modern versions of all of those things. And so people, it's really funny. Anything you can ascribe to Freud because he was wrong about so much, they're like, well, you love even the concepts which do develop, and the fact that he's still considered the father of the modern psychology, and that's where it all begins. Anyway, so that was a bit silly, but at the end of the day, like I'm tired of it. I'm tired of pretending like I don't. Here's the way I put it. I would rather worry being a little too egotistical than the history I had with my channels and comment sections, because I have also lived the opposite, where every criticism burned through me like a knife. I've cried on my closet floor because of the way people were talking about me, because of the way I felt things were being misattributed to me, or that my reputation was being stolen from me, not on the basis of things I actually said or did or felt, but on the basis of the way a group of people wanted to project me, even though it was demonstrably false, but felt that there was no interest in anybody actually caring. The thing is about the drag. It's you go to the public execution because that entertains you for some fucking weird reason, not because you want to hear the person out. And that was really tough on me. And so at this point now I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make a product that I fucking feel really great about, that I feel amazing about. And I'm not going to let anybody fucking get in the way of me enjoying myself and liking what I do. So I feel that I'm just going to start being honest with myself, and that extends out into other people. I'm certain I'm not a narcissist. You can't be, but a lot of people are going to call me that. Anybody who expresses ever some type of selfishness, but I don't see humanity or being a human or anything as a detriment, and that I need to use humans to get places. I don't. But also, I know I'm not a narcissist because I do know what fucking mental abilities and disabilities I do have. And we've done all the evaluations, and I didn't lie, because that's one of the funny things about trying to diagnose a narcissist, is that a narcissist will often lie to get their diagnosis. They get better and better. Therapy doesn't work on narcissists, for example. This is a really interesting thing I was reading about. Narcissists and therapy don't go well together, especially treating for narcissism, because a narcissist will basically just get better at controlling their own therapy. It just improves their ability to blend. Same thing with like sociopaths, psychopaths, and everything. So basically, at the end of the day, I'm sitting here going like, I'm not going to ever go Kanye, right? But there's a story of Kanye's years ago that I remember when I heard it, I was like, God, I wish I had any of that where he was watching unreleased episodes of Chappelle's Show. So I know we're now getting into figures that I used to revere, both of them, I used to revere greatly. I always knew that fucking Kanye was full of himself, tremendously full of himself in a way that is repulsive. But his music, I used to love his music. Well, I can't even say I still love his music because his music is still incredible. He, the man, has become terrible. And so I don't consume, despite the fact that I can't pretend I don't have that emotional attachment to it. That would just be stupid for the sake of virtue signaling, basically. Anyway, he years ago was watching unreleased episodes of Chappelle's Show, and it was like right as he was like taken off. And I think Chappelle is the one who told the story. And somebody calls him and he's like, I can't talk right now. I'm watching a new episodes of Chappelle's Show. And then apparently he ends his call with, because my life's dope and I do dope shit. And he hangs up. And that story, it's so funny how, again, now this is a terrible person, but that story stuck with me so long because I've never been able to feel that way about myself or my life or anything until kind of recently. Like recently, as things have been like, we're building something here at the line and it's good. And it's good. It does good things and it brings good people together to do good things. And I've abandoned anything else that is drama inducing or whatever. I mean, people try to force it. Don't get me wrong. People still try to make it drama stuff and interpersonal YouTuber shit. I just don't miss me with that shit. I don't give a fuck. I'm Jimmy Snow. My channel's dope and I do dope shit. Like it's the first time that I've been able to feel this fucking way. And so that's 5 years. 5 years of to get there. To get to, you know what? This is fucking nice. And I'm going to sit back and enjoy it. A lot of this is success in therapy. By the way, this is a super hard point I got to. I know that there are going to be people that are probably watching now and will probably watch later, who will just be offended by me saying I have joy and I'm enjoying myself and I'm depressed less often. And I'm allowing myself to say this because I used to live in a total world of it's not good enough. It's not good enough. It's not fucking good enough. And now I'm sitting here going like, it probably isn't good enough, but it's still fucking real good. And it took 5 years to get there as far as my YouTube journey goes. I definitely didn't have that satisfaction prior, whether it's as a photographer, whether it was in college, whether it was the jobs in between. I certainly didn't feel like that as a high schooler when I was younger. It's nice and it's new. In 5 years, I feel like the person I was 5 years ago and me could barely recognize each other. And I even wonder whether or not the 5 years ago me would want this to be where he ended up in 5 years. I don't know. Maybe I'd reconsider because I've said that now. If you push me back 5 years and give me the option to start or not, I might reclaim total anonymity because there's some elements of that are soul crushing. That I can't get past. But anyway, you know what a narcissist would probably do is start the first 10 minutes or whatever of the show talking about the size of his ego. So maybe I am. It's just silly, shitty stuff. It's Valentine's Day and I like doing shows on the holidays. I'm a pretty lonely person. That's true. I'm a lonely person and I'm doing nothing to solve that. And that's a problem. And this is something that I'm not succeeding. This is an area in therapy I'm not succeeding in. Because as far as like loneliness goes, you know, Matt and Arden live an hour away. I'll see them tomorrow actually. And I have friends that I can go be with. They're pretty much all work friends at the moment. I do have my brother and his family, and that's sort of like my most non-work social area. Something I tremendously enjoy is hanging out with them and talking about our upbringings and what thing we realized today. Like, hey, do you remember the way this would happen? That's this type of abuse. I didn't even think about it at the time. The overhead light is on and I've just noticed that instead of just these lights. And it's going to bother me a ton because there's a slightly different color to the light coming more from above me than the ones that come more horizontally. I don't like it. I don't like it. Anyway, yes, my hair does grow very fast, by the way. This is the person who mentioned in the chat. I have fast growing, thick. It's also that my hair is thick. What's funny is right now my hairline looks awful. It looks like I have this big letter M. I'm actually touching. I can feel hair right here, and I can feel it right here in the areas that look like there's not. I have these 2 spots of light. If you actually go back and you look at my hair, you'll see it. They're like more reddish brown of lighter hairs. And it makes my hairline look back because this is all quite dark. Anyway, it grows back fast. It's only been 10 days since I shaved it to bald again. And so the beard grows a little faster. I like it. Anyway, it'll be back soon. Valentine's Day is tough for a lot of people because it's not just whether or not you're alone. It's whether or not amongst seeing a lot of people. And this is one of those things that as humans, we can't help but notice and we wish we could solve. And we know that like there's ways we should talk about it and address it reasonably and logically. But surely in society, we see on Valentine's Day, Valentine's Day is mostly directed toward gestures for women. And that's true too. However, the idea of being with somebody or not on Valentine's Day still is a big thing for anybody of any gender to internalize. And when you see other people being made happy on Valentine's Day, it can give you a sense of deeper loneliness because if you're not either being made happy or someone doing a gesture for you, or you're not doing a gesture for somebody. Now that said, I actually did do a gesture for somebody this year. I'm not going to go into great detail, but there's a person in my life. We love each other. We're not in a relationship. Maybe one day. Seems ultimately like we'll probably it seems like something will probably happen one day. It's sort of this thing of like, we know how we feel about each other. We know that this is the type of person you'd want to be in a relationship with, but there's still all the other things. And there's a lot of other issues and stuff. And so may or may not happen one day. I don't know. But right now, neither of us we're enjoying what we have out of each other and the roles that we do fill. And basically had a discussion sometime back where it was like, this is sort of the when we would decide, but I'd rather keep this than risk losing it to a relationship that's not currently structured in a way that it would likely succeed because of things, distance, and both of us both of us work like 70 hours a week because we're both independent, responsible for our own futures and companies and all that sort of stuff. And so it's one of those things. So I did do a gesture for somebody that made me feel nice and a little less alone, and it was good. But it's still the day where everybody, regardless of if you think Valentine's Day is a sham and a scam, both of which are true. They're both, it's a bullshit holiday where you're mandated to now do. So if you're the kind of person who already doesn't need a day to show that you love somebody with gestures because you constantly show somebody you love them, now you have to beat your normal baseline gestures. Now it's about doing the second level up. It's a ridiculous holiday, and the pressures it puts on people are really fucking stupid. But it doesn't stop you from going like, today's the day that people who are in love are celebrating being in love. Tons of people will get laid today, and I'm not. This was a royal I'm. I also am not going to get laid today, but this is speaking in a sense of like what a person might be feeling. Lots of people get laid today. I'm not. Lots of people will feel very cared about today, and I won't. Lots of people will just get to have the experience of old love or new love or mid love. I hate that word mid. It's used a lot and I don't like it. Anyway, it's a tough one, and it's tough to feel that way and to recognize, especially like one of the things, hey, by the way, just get to calls for fucking sake. Welcome to Cus I Wanna. The way this show works is we'll get to calls when I wanna. I'll talk about what I want to. Look, and here's the thing. I don't mean this in a go and never come back way. I'm actually going to say this legitimately meaning it. This show is an ego exercise. I'm doing this show when I feel full of myself enough. This part's a little bit facetious, but it's when I feel the impulse to do something, talk about something, whatever. There is no set structure to the show. Guaranteed calls, guaranteed super chats at the end. Yes. But when those are going to happen, this show is entirely dictated by the fucking whatever my brain decides to do. I get it. You want to hear calls. I totally get it. If you want to come back later and see if I've gotten into calls and then rewind or not come back because it isn't your thing, that's fine. It's not your thing. You should do that. This is definitely the show where I go, I want to talk about me a little bit. I want to talk about what's on my mind. That's why I said it is a bit of an exercise in ego. It's me rambling and then taking calls and waiting for. We have no theist callers lined up so far. I only have atheists waiting. I'm not saying those calls don't have value. I always prioritize theist calls, but the theist lines are completely open. I guarantee you, had we had a theist on hold for like 10 minutes by now, I probably would have started calls because I'd have been more excited to jump into a theist call. But this is just how it is. Like, it's just how it is. So listen, I get it. You see the line went live and you want to come for a call show. You just need to know that isn't this show. It is a call-in show, but that's the priority or whatever else. The priority is wherever the fuck my mind is. It truly. And I'm done pretending. I remember years ago, doing my own merch campaign for Jimmy Snow and seeing that if I said like, hey, look at this thing, I try to make people feel a certain way about the merch, make it feel like, look at the joke on this, so funny, ha ha ha. Those did very well. And then sometimes I would just do campaigns where I would say, buy the merch because it supports the channel. It supports me, and I'd like you to buy the merch because with more money, I can do more stuff. And that's really how this company is. I will tell you, other than probably the amount of money that I got from Adam and Eve sponsorships, which went into building my wood shop, I keep very little for personal enrichment. Generally, I use it for expanding, building out. I like to do gestures also for people who help out. So, for example, Erica was on the line last night, and she is not a typical host. She is a guest. We don't pay guests. We pay the hosts. Guests come on usually for a combination of wanting the exposure plus enjoying the show. That's just sort of the normal collaboration agreement. You come on and so I bought her a microphone. She mentioned it on the show last night. I'm not trying to like, everybody, you should know how great I am. I like doing things like that too. Like, because her episodes are like very successful. They're very financially lucrative. And it felt weird to be like, Forrest gets paid because Forrest is the host. It felt weird to be like you get nothing, even though you stayed around for hours. And so now I feel like I owe her a second gift for last night's show because it was so fucking amazing. It went so long and so many people played the super chat game and it was great. And that's sort of my model is I don't save much. I don't keep much. I probably should save more because it's not really ever a good idea to admit you're not saving much. Generally, in some way or another, things go into the channel and expanding the channel. So yeah, that's I think there are some atheist callers on the line. We just don't have any theist ones. I'll get to those here in a second. I think I forgot what the thing was to do. Y'all can unionize. The mods can unionize if you want. They're all volunteer positions. We've literally told mods always, like, volunteer to be a mod or a screener if you'd be there anyway. And then occasionally when I've got like extra Humble Bundle keys, I'll just, if I'm talking to somebody, be like, hey, you want one of these or whatever? But we don't want any mod taking like time. Yeah, y'all unionize, do whatever you want. You want to, as a group to me, say, here are my demands, let me know. If you think I'm rich and I can start paying everybody, you're severely mistaken. That's why we want, the volunteers we want are people who are like, I'd be there anyway. What's the difference to me being there modding chats and shit like that? What was this last thing? Want to do something in the intro song for the Sunday show? May I suggest you listen to the same song, 1.5 speed. I find it. Oh, yeah, I just need to change the intro. The Sunday show's intro, part of me doesn't want to, though, also, except for maybe fixing the music the way it goes lower. But the intro to the Sunday show has been the same since the line launched, since before it was the Sunday show. It says Jimmy Snow presents The Line. The Line started as a show, and it is what is technically now called the Sunday show. The Line was a call-in show on Sundays. Now The Line is a network of shows and is expanding. And I think we'll turn into more channels in the future, and we'll turn into even more call-in shows with different topics and everything. Right now, we've got our 5 shows a week. We're going to get those up to perfect, refined, everything great. I'd like to expand to where we can afford a facility and things of that nature. it'd be great to be able to get. I'm currently designing, this was something I announced last night toward the end of the show, so a lot of people have missed it. I am currently in development of a game show for the line. And if we could actually put that in a facility with a game show set, as opposed to like a split screen as we'd have to do right now, that would be amazing. It would make my little heart absolutely swell. Because right now, not being able to do that, I have to figure out some way. I don't want it to look like we're basically playing Jackbox games on Zoom. I want to create some sense of the game show, probably with some combination of green screening and the like, where we can bring people into a virtual set even. It'll be interesting, and it'll take some development, but I'm really, really excited for the game show. This thing that I've been working with and developing, it's been tremendous. Hey, Mongi, why don't you call in? Why don't you call in and tell me all the things you know about me? Why don't you, let's see. I'll tell the screener right now. There is the number on the lower 2/3. What are you talking about? Had I not put it up then? Yeah, it is up there. If Mongi calls, they can bypass the 2 atheist limit. If Mongi is a honest person and not just some troll in the fucking chat trying to just spew some shit, you got shit to say, come say it to me. I'd have to look at how actually was set up over the pandemic, but I have an idea in mind. And it would be great. Yeah, I'm excited, Mongi. Call on in. Tell me all the shit you think you know. But while we wait for Mongi, let's talk to Mustafa in Minnesota. Mustafa in Minnesota, you are on the line.
Oh my God, I am fangirling out right now. I've been the biggest fan of you, like since you had the Jesus hair. So it's a huge honor to be on your show right now.
It's all downhill from here, my friend. It's very kind of you to say all of that. I'd way rather you tell me to go fuck myself, but I appreciate all of that. I appreciate that you like what we're doing here. Anyway,
I'm from Minnesota, dude. I won't be mean.
It's all good.
Yeah. So I actually asked this question to other hosts. And I want to ask you, because you're my favorite secular commenter, it's regarding criticism of Islam, because I know you mostly focus on criticizing Christianity and Mormonism. Mm-hmm. But if you were to tackle the criticization of Islam, which is pretty heated given that it has a lot to do with socio-political stuff, given that Muslims are often persecuted in the U.S., I'm speaking as an ex-Muslim, because I still get it as an ex-Muslim. How would you do it? And maybe more simplistically, would you do it too?
So look, people call into the show and they don't only call in for Christianity, but I'll admit we don't get enough people from Islam calling. We don't get enough Muslims calling. I would love to talk to them. You wouldn't see much change. I feel that it is clear, because the application of skepticism doesn't change forms when I talk to a Muslim versus talking to a Christian, that it is clear that this is about Islam, the ideology, and that it's not some bigoted, you're a Muslim, therefore bad, therefore you're a terrorist, therefore you're all the fucking stereotypes that people want to go with, now, it doesn't mean that you can't expect some things from a person. In the same way that if somebody says they're a Mormon, generally that's going to come with some core red flags, basically. It's sort of like, it kind of reminds me of like the not all men movement. The people who say not all men, where men have done so much garbage and so much shit to women that it's still better, it's safer for a woman to put up certain guards immediately when they are exposed to a man, and then let a man show to them that they are the exception, and then bring those guards down. Especially in certain places in the world, it's worse in some places than others, because it's true, quote unquote, not all men. So where those red flags show up aren't on these extreme things where, oh, you've said a Muslim, prove to me now you're not a terrorist. That's ridiculous. That's bigoted. That's just fucking being a xenophobic dick. But you want to start talking about sexism shit, that comes with even a lot of the progressive forms of Islam. And so having that red flag up and wanting to have that conversation, there was a discussion recently. I'm going to keep bringing this back to Mormonism because it's the one that's easiest to sort of demonstrate with. But there was a discussion recently between me and a host. And I'm not going to say which host. We've got tons of shows here. It's probably not the person you're going to guess it was, but it was me and a host who wanted to bring on somebody for a show to talk about a specific thing. And the problem was that 4 of our 5 shows are still skepticism and humanism promoting. And the person they wanted to bring in, while they would have been a good scientific mind and history mind to share some perspective with, I can't reconcile bringing a person who gives their 10% of their income, because this person, it turns out, was a Mormon. When I was first hearing the resume of all the stuff, like, fuck yeah, get this guy on and all that. And whoa, fuck yeah, bring him on. Here's the one thing, Jimmy, he's Mormon. And he clearly has beliefs, scientific beliefs and historical beliefs that are incompatible with Mormonism, but he's Mormon. And so there was this part of me where I went, is there a place I could put him? Is there a place I could put this person and not feel weird? And at the end of the day, I told the host that I don't think I can, because were they just a progressive Christian? That's one thing. I'd want to know what church specifically they go to and what their contribution is. But the problem with a Mormon who says they are affiliated with a Mormon in good standing, they are going to church and they are considered a Mormon by the Mormons, or whatever words they want to use now, is that means they're giving 10% of their income to not just a non-skeptical or non-humanist organization, but an anti-humanist, which actually matters more to me than the skepticism, an anti-humanist organization that spends those funds to fight queer rights. So that's all on the basis of this person who is still a great scientific mind, still incredible. It's the same problem I have with, I really want to go back to watching and supporting Mark Rober, but I can't, because the millions of dollars Mark Rober makes, 10% of it goes to an anti-humanist organization that fights. I can't buy Lindsey Sterling tickets for the same thing. 10% of the money that she makes goes to an organization which fights against rights. And so that's based on a sort of summary judgment. You're a Mormon. You're saying you embrace Mormonism. This is what Mormonism requires. Now, Islam is more like the umbrella of lots of religions, whereas Mormonism, you could call it as a subset of Christianity, or a non-Christian but Christian fanfic religion. And so Mormonism's more like the sect of Christianity, or the anti-Christianity, depending on how you want to look at it, whereas Islam is this greater umbrella term. And so it's tough, because while that's true and you know that, and there are going to be Muslims who are cool, great people. I used to have a friend, I mean, I wouldn't say used to, like we're not friends anymore. We just sort of lost touch since I've moved away. But I used to have a friend who was Muslim, and we'd go and party and he'd yell, "Fuck Allah, the night is ours," that sort of thing. And funny shit like that. And he had none of those things. But at the end of the day, when you look at the numbers of what percentage of Muslims believe about things like sexist issues, or exhibit sexist beliefs, and those high percentages, or if I'm a queer person and I'm exposed to a Muslim, knowing that there is a high percentage of homophobic things, at the end of the day, it shouldn't be you should run away from them or do anything that just shows off bigotry, start screaming in them or whatever. But it's totally reasonable if you know an ideology at its core, because the core Islamic ideology is sexist and homophobic, when exposed to a person who adheres to that ideology, to at the minimum be permitted to find out if you're talking to the exception or the rule. And so you wouldn't see much difference, honestly. If somebody called in, the way you see me engage with a Muslim, I have Mormon friends. I like some Mormons. I don't financially support them in any way, because I'm not going to let an indirect dollar, 10%, go to an organization I abhor so much. But I like Muslims. I even have some bigoted Muslim friends, but I need to know where they are and it not be a mystery. And so I'm going to explore that. And I find that's entirely reasonable. What do you think of that, Mustafa?
Yeah, I mean, that's very broad in like a good way.
Yeah.
I would certainly like to see you do it in action, just because.
Same.
I mean, yeah, but yeah. Anyways, I gotta actually get going because I'm like you. I am getting late tonight.
Hey.
So I'm gonna sign
Congratulations.
off here. Anyways, congratulations. I literally didn't know that this was your anniversary. So that just makes my call-in more poetic. And
yeah.
I wish you the best of luck in your ventures.
Thank you, Mustafa. It was great to hear from you. Congratulations on getting laid tonight. Couldn't be happier for you, despite the slight resentment that comes with my jealousy. Do have a good night.
You too, man.
We'll see ya. And for the record, there are clearly limits on the things I will talk about. I do want to say, if I was truly talking entirely about just where my mind is, y'all, we'd be talking about some weird shit. I recently found out that Benadryl has an effect on how a certain activity feels. And I'm very I've been thinking about it like crazy. I've been researching, why would Benadryl make that better? That's what we'd be talking about and in direct terms. So I do limit myself a little bit, despite now telling you, giving you a little preview of, I get allergies here in Texas. And so Benadryl's been something that I will use periodically. Anyway, it's a whole ass thing. Google it if you're interested. I didn't know. Let's see. Let's talk to, I think I can do this one quickly so we can open up another atheist line after. So let me get Will in. Oh, excuse me. Will from Washington State, you are on the line.
Hey, Jimmy, how you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
Hanging in there.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the lonely today.
Yeah, I get it. That's how I feel.
Yeah. So it, this is kind of a fiddly, philosophical question, and it also may just be a I'm an idiot question.
Mm-hmm.
But I just wanted to hear somebody else's thoughts on it. So basically, if you're talking to a theist, they presume that a God exists, right? If you allow that a God exists, that is evil. Is it still moral to oppose that evil God? Because doesn't the presupposition of a God, whatever they say is the moral standard, because they, de facto get to set what morality is. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So if you're talking to a believer about it, they're going to basically say well, how could God be evil if he decides what's moral? God would have to say what I am doing is immoral. And God would never say that. I mean, the standard that most theists have for gods are, I believe that what he says is, and that's what they call objective morality, despite the introduction of a literal subject, that's objective morality to them because it's exterior, it's external morality that's being dictated to you as opposed to being evaluated by you. But it's all somewhat nonsensical because the concept of morality only exists as something humans can do for each other. We wouldn't even be able to very successfully tell other aliens what is moral or not moral until we set up something we with the aliens have agreed should be for well-reasoned out lines of thinking should be the standard by which we determine our morality. That which we think is good and that which we think is evil, which would have started as very primitive and very selfish things as our brains developed, of that which is evil seems to be the things that harms me, and that which is good seems to be the things which benefit me. And then that has become more complex as we've become more social species, as we've become more understanding of other people's suffering versus our suffering, as our empathy ability got deeper. Everything about morality is so non-religious that I think it's why it's somewhat, I kind of went on this rant when somebody brought it up. It's a pretty stupid spot for any theist to jump into, because at the end of the day, even if you say it's from God, you're still deciding that that's the right place to take your morality from and not actually proving that the God exists. So as far as what the word moral means, it's completely unique to being a human trait, basically. And so it's just a wildly stupid thing. But I mean, the answer to your question though is How would you establish that God is immoral if God is the morality sets the morality, decides? I mean, if you had a God of evil and he was literally like, I'm the God of evil, I do that which is evil, then I suppose you'd be moral to oppose him. But if morality is that which God says is good and whatever God does is good, then killing babies in the name of God that are freshly the firstborn children of anybody who doesn't put blood over their door in a special little pattern, then that is moral, even though we find it repugnant. You know what I'm saying, Will?
Right. No, totally.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's something I bump on when I hear a lot of people, who I, basically agree with on like 90% of things, make that argument like if that God existed, I would still oppose them.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't think that, like, again, hypothetically, like allowing for the existence of a God, like if that God exists, that doesn't complexify like morality being like a purely internalized like human experience in your estimation?
So if it would still mean that morality is for a person to make such a statement is a person who has identified that God isn't the moral, either the moral superior moral setter, or isn't responsible for that which is moral. So you basically say, add a God, and I'm still saying human well-being is the absolute standard for morality. Now, the funny thing about all the people who say that, and many of them are my friends, I don't know if Matt said it or not, I'm sure but that I wouldn't do anything, I still wouldn't, and I'd just go to hell on my terms. I'm not convinced most people would actually just go to hell. If the God shows up and you have to change and basically be a liar and a shitbird, but you don't get tortured for eternity, I don't know. Torture for eternity is a pretty big repellent. And so I don't know if I believe a single person. I don't know if that's a made up mythical story. I can't remember right now. It's been a long time since I've heard it, but I've seen a lot of people quote it as though they have the comparable experience where you're like, oh, yeah, buddy, I've had a pretty shit life because of religion. I'm not going to compare it to the Holocaust. But anyway, I'm not convinced that people actually with an actual threat of hell that was legitimate wouldn't go like, fine, what songs do I got to sing? What prayers do I got to fucking say? It's just that the threat of hell isn't legitimate. And so that's why I don't worry about it. It's completely nonsensical.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't really worry about it either. I think it's, sorry, I didn't. Yeah, I don't really worry about it. It's just like, I don't know. I feel like from a perspective of like trying to have conversations with people who are believers.
Yeah, I get it.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate your thoughts, man.
Sure. I was gonna say anything else before we let you go.
No. I mean, great stream last night, and go fuck yourself.
All right, go fuck yourself too. Will, have a good night. Hope you get. I was gonna say, I hope you get laid, but you already said it'll be a lonely one. So I hope some magical things line up.
I will tell you. No, this is my first. I'm getting divorced right now. Oh. Actually.
It's weird because usually people's reaction to that is to go like, I'm sorry. But usually if you're getting a divorce, it's for a good reason. So I don't know whether to say I'm sorry or like, hey, soon enough, right now probably sucks, but another year or two, you're going to be like best thing that happened. So,
as soon as I get those papers signed.
Yeah.
Golden.
It's on. I got it. All right, cool. Yeah. Thanks, Will.
Hey, take care, man.
Sure. See ya. I'm a little sad. I thought the snapping, crackling, and popping that we were having in the previous episodes. So the funny thing is it's twofold. One, it happens way more if a person's gain is too sensitive. So some calls we get in and it's every other word there, snap, crackling, and popping. But I thought the entire snap, crackling, and popping was the workaround, or at least the source of it. The initial source was the workaround that we've had to use for the last couple of days. And I just realized that it hasn't gone away now that I don't have to use that workaround anymore. Now that I've solved the tech issues, I think that we had. I think I began to tell that story in the preamble and then just didn't get anywhere with it. And that's very much, that sounds exactly like me. None of that surprises me at all. This thing on my neck, it looks like I cut myself shaving. It's an ingrown hair or something. And it's actually been here a while. You can actually, if you go and look at a video back when I had the longer beard and stuff, you can find this thing in there. And I've been agitating it, so it's been bleeding recently. I gotta probably go see like a dermatologist that would fix that. There's got to be something in there that needs to be cut out or something. And then maybe get this, it's on this side. This blemish on my cheek, depending on how warm I am, can look like a full-on black eye. Look at that. Just touching it, it's starting to look like a bigger bruise. I don't know what it is. I do get rosy cheeks, but this is a little bit more focused. It looks like I'm punched in the face. Yeah, I don't think student Dr. Ben is ready to cut my neck open, but I appreciate the suggestion. Just stick a needle in there. Already have. Just leave it alone and it'll go away. That's what they said about my depression. Anyway, that's not true. They didn't say that. Well, no, some people did. My dad sort of projected that I'd grow out of it. Let's talk to Jessica in Utah. Jessica wants to talk about universal determinism.
Hello, Jimmy. You asked me to call it. I called Aron a few weeks ago, and you asked me to call back when you were hosting. So here I am.
Hello. Yeah, that's right. I don't remember exactly why I wanted. I think it was just that I think we had the follow-up conversation that maybe clarified it. But there's ideas about being a determinist that I felt weren't being understood because Aron doesn't consider himself a determinist. I do believe that the universe is deterministic in practice, not as a preemptive thing. I don't think anyone decided anything. I don't think there's anything controlling that it would happen. It's just that everything is a result of natural processes. So if you created the same Big Bang, everything that would follow, including human civilization, would look identical. You go forward 13.8 billion years, it's me talking to you on the phone. Do you remember what the specific thing why I wanted to hit it with you was?
So I definitely wanted to answer that question, but I wanted to ask you one question before I continue, because this has been driving me nuts. Because everywhere I look, everybody's saying, in the atheist sphere, it seems like they're all saying that there's this appearance of free will, but that everything is deterministic. And I have the reverse experience where everything very much appears deterministic, and I'm being told by all directions that there's free will existing. Do you experience that too, or is that just me?
Yeah, I can explain it to you so that you understand that we're probably not on the other side of things. And if the universe is deterministic, it creates the illusion of free will, which is indistinguishable to the individual from actually having free will. So whether we have free will or not, we will experience either free will or an identical illusion of free will, basically by necessity, because we still have the experience of the concept of will and choices. You do make choices, but when the universe started 13.8 billion years ago, that's the moment that it was locked in that you were going to pick Oreos over ice cream. You still make the choice. You still do it. You still have the ice. You still have the Oreos, but it's not, you didn't really, the future was always going to be the future that the present that then happened. Or sorry, the future was always going to be what happened. But nothing's like out there with a force being like, and we won't even allow you to do the ice cream. It's that something about your brain was totally naturally going, okay, I want the Oreo, not the ice cream. Let's just pick something. Because I recently had ice cream and my brain is basically saying it's craving a dopamine rush, and the dopamine rush I will get from the unique experience, and the ice cream is boring, and so I've become adapted to it. So I want that higher dopamine rush. So I pick the Oreo. And all of these things happen in split seconds, actually before we even internalize them with our internal monologue, before we actually think them. You can actually see brains lighting up, making the decisions before we actually put words to the decisions they make in an MRI. And then you can just trace every single one of those steps back to completely natural things that led to you standing in front of Oreo or ice cream and choosing between the two, and why you chose it, but then what created the situation that you'd even be there. And every time you take a step back, there's no non-natural materialistic step between you all the way back to the Big Bang, as is apparent anyway. And this is why it's basically non-random chaos, which sounds ridiculous, led to what you picking Oreos.
Yeah, no, it doesn't sound ridiculous at all to me, Jimmy, and that's very much been my experience my whole life. And what I was trying to talk to Aron about, and I think what maybe got missed in all of the trying to get Aron to the understanding that it sounds like we actually share right now is, to me, my entire life, that I've been hyper aware of that illusion that I don't actually have the choice. There is no free will. It was all locked in from the moment of the beginning of the universe. And
not having free will doesn't mean you don't have a choice. It just means that you didn't. Okay. The choices you're making aren't as we very selfishly or egotistically or whatever you want put a lot of significance to the fact that we have thoughts, and we don't want to feel like there is anything besides our sitting there and really sitting down and making a choice. It's just that everything that led to you picking the Oreo was a natural process, was a natural thing. There's a reason. Right. There are lots of a billion lines of code, basically, not quite code, but of a history of events that led to you getting the Oreo. But you still make choices. Right. It's just you didn't have another choice but to make it the way you did.
Right. Right. No, we're in total agreement there. But what I was trying to get to is that because I very much feel that. I experience what you're describing. Mm-hmm. And to me, that always felt like, even when I was Mormon, the greatest God I could possibly conceptualize is exactly that. The understanding that we're all just a bunch of effing NPCs in someone else's video game, it feels like. To me, that was like the ultimate God. I'm like, no, it's all fate, man.
Yeah.
You know? And that was my argument for God that I was trying to present to Aron, that I felt like maybe because it's such a dense, complicated topic, I wasn't really able to kind of chew into it. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Why would we not call that deterministic feature, that billion lines of code that and really kind of drives the whole show? If that's not a God, what is a God, right?
No. Why? Here's my question back for you, Jessica. It's not about why we wouldn't. It's about why we would. Which definition of God falls under a deterministic universe? Because the utility, God is way more than just something with multiple definitions. It's a utility. It's a thing people worship. It's a thing people use as an explanation. And everything that I just told you exists have words to describe each element of it, even if there are gaps in that we haven't filled in yet with special words, because we don't have the whole timeline all the way back to the Big Bang defined, I guess is the word. It's not mapped out all the way back to the Big Bang. Why would we call something God that doesn't need that name? There's no person, there's no force, there's not somebody making sure you make the decision you make. None of that is anything that we have any reason to exist. Why would we call that God and leave the atheist proposition for theism? Why would we do that?
So I think until recently I wouldn't have, but
don't appease people around you because they will accept you more if you can call yourself some type of theist. Okay, because that's the number one motivation people do with this deistic shit, I've noticed.
Okay, that's certainly not my motivation. Mine more has been that as I've been kind of becoming more discovering more about Taoism and finding that Taoism very much aligns with what I kind of conceptualize as a deterministic universe, the more that I accept the way that things unfold, even if they're shitty, even if I'm like, fuck, some shitty stuff happened to me, but you know what? The universe was always going to do that no matter what, and all I can do is submit to the fact that this is a universe that's deterministic and I have no control. That has been incredibly, wonderfully relieving, where I'm like, oh, thank God, I don't have to pull my hair out trying so fucking hard when I just realized it's all just deterministic, man. It was always going to happen that way.
Basically, as far as you wanting to call this God, it wouldn't be much more ridiculous, even though it is sort of ridiculous in both cases, than calling the Higgs boson the God particle. There is a colloquial way that it fits. If you're talking about God just is supreme reality or whatever. But again, as a practice within society, first of all, it's not theistic. And so you aren't a theist if you believe that the universe is deterministic, because theism and the God of theism.
Hello?
Can you not hear me suddenly? Hello?
Jimmy, are you there?
I hear you. You don't hear me?
I can't hear you anymore.
I don't know why. The show's running. All my audio bars are moving. I don't know.
I'm sorry, Jimmy. I lost Jim in the call.
I can't. You can't hear me say don't end it. I was going to try to return to Q and bring it back. I don't know why everything was looking fine on my end. In this case, I assumed everything had broken, but I'll just end it here. It's God is a being. The as far as theism goes, when we're talking about are you a theist, do you believe in a God? To say to you just believe in greater concepts of reality and that all of those greater concepts like string together or something along those lines, none of those get you there. It ain't that is basically what I'm getting at. It ain't, I don't understand this pull and this need to go like, hey, here's the greatest truth I can find. Because first of all, there may be truths that are greater than that one. And so why don't we just call the greatest truth God? Because that's not what people do. That's not the utility within society. And I'm not going to give up my position as an atheist, which is a rejection of a certain claim of a God being, to be frank and to be clear, while acknowledging that I talk about things like God particles, which is a colloquialism that is a bit silly, but it does the job it's looking to do. I'm not giving up that position by special pleading my way to a position that's more accepted by society. And so I wish we had gotten to it. We can talk again another time. Jessica, if you have the time, I wish we would have gotten to why do you need to put something in the God hole? Why do you need to have a God hole? And then why do you need to fill the God hole? Live chat can do that which they like. Yes, this is my co-host, Mr. Bird. Mwangi, am I pronouncing your name correctly, first of all?
Yes, sir, and I'm apologize for that. I was just trying to get into your skin so you can pick my call, man.
I just want...
So I'm going to...
I wanted you to call because I wanted to know what your problem with me was, but if you're telling me you don't even have a problem with me, that's so boring now.
No. I listen to you and Matt. You know, you and Matt are my favorite, man. I'm from up. Anyway, I'm just gonna try to make this, as quick as I can, because sure. I know we don't have much time. So
I was excited. Yeah, so I'm not kidding. I was excited to get I was waiting for someone to come in here and rip me a new asshole, but that's okay. We'll do whatever call you want to call about.
Oh no, that's okay, man. You guys are my favorites. Anyway, yeah. So I'm from Africa, man, and so I'm a truck driver. Everything is cool in the U.S., but, I'm married to this girl, man. She's from Africa, too, but, man, I know indoctrination is a strong word, but she's right there, man. And, I know deep down in my heart, I know I'm an atheist. That is for sure.
Sure.
But, she's a church girl, man. Coming out, being an atheist, man, is pretty much like coming out being an atheist, in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Something like that,
Yeah.
We have 3 kids, so sometimes I watch her, telling them, stuff about Jesus, God, and stuff like that. I don't say anything really, but,
Yeah.
You know how it is, but it kind of affects me in a way. But at the same time, I cannot say anything, so I'm kind of stuck in that situation, man. So I was just going to ask you, man, if you are in my shoes,
yeah,
what would you do? Because, it's hard. Because, I just don't want to break my marriage just because of, religion.
And you shouldn't.
It's not that important to me.
Right. You shouldn't break your marriage just over that. There are greater things that it can be implicit of, and there can be problems that come from the religion. But if those problems aren't coming up, it shouldn't just be she's religious and you're not. The only advice I feel like I'm qualified to give at all is that which I can give as the child of a believer, because I'm not married. I can't tell you what it's like to be a father, but I can tell you what it's like to be the son of a father who was religious and a mother who was religious. They really were. My parents too. They were really religious. They were Catholics. I was raised a Catholic, so yeah. But I was a skeptic. Since I was in high school. Yeah, that I can say. Mwangi, you want to know the funniest thing my dad accidentally did? My dad, the Mormon, because he had been a detective in the Air Force, accidentally taught me skepticism. My Mormon father laid the ground rock for my skepticism. He, however, had a behavior and an exercise where he would he'd teach me these things. I mean, I tell a lot of these stories, so forgive me for the people who've heard this 100 times. But one time we were in I think it was Elders Quorum or something like that. But anyway, someone's given the story about how his roommates or his old mission companion's brother saw a sign in front of a church and it said, "Don't read the Book of Mormon. That's how you get you." And this was just one of the mini lessons. My dad was like, okay, so here's the reason why you know that story's not true. Even though it's, by the way, this is a story that these people are telling each other to up their faith. And he's taking me aside and saying, here's the reason you know that the story's not true. It should always be a red flag when it's, this happened to this person in my life, one removed, where it sounds just close enough to be true. So the fact that it was the old mission companion, we'll use roommate because that's what a lot of people understand more. The old roommate's brother. It's this level of separation that makes it sound still like the story would be reliable. The whole thing's made up, basically. And he's like, you don't know whether or not the person telling you is lying. You don't know whether or not his roommate lied to him. Somebody at some point made this story up. That's a huge red flag. And there's some investigating to do, but we just stay quiet. We listen. These were the little things that my dad taught me. And he didn't teach it ever against Mormonism, the ideology. But the reason why I left Mormonism was I applied the lessons he was teaching me about thinking harder about what people were saying. Hearing an explanation.
They will teach you about critical thinking.
Yeah.
But you are not supposed to apply critical thinking when it comes to religion. That's what's mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
Like you should be a critical thinker when it comes to business, when it comes to work, when it comes to relationships, but when it comes to religion, it's a no. That is I don't know what to say about that, man.
I think if you never, so the problem my dad ran into was he never taught me to not apply it to religion. He just doesn't apply it to religion. He never forbid me, or he never said, like, here's the point where you turn it off. So I never turned it off. So if I'm you.
Yeah, because they think you will never do. They think you'll never do. They just think that, like, because, they start indoctrinating you when you are a child,
Yeah,
they think that is
that
not
you're as
something
attached
that you
to it as they are.
about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I'm you, Mwangi.
So, man, I got to tell you, man, I don't know this so much of your time, but I got to tell you, like, the way they indoctrinate kids in Africa, it's not like here, man.
Yeah.
There's that verse in the, I cannot remember the book or whatever, but that verse that says that spoil the cane, spare the cane.
Spare the rod, spoil the child, yeah.
Yeah, spare the Lord, yeah. The Lord is the king, whatever.
Yeah.
But, sometimes it's pretty much like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's threats. I mean, so religion in general, especially the more fundamentalist, the worse. It's all threats. Do this or you burn. Do this or I hit you. Do this or you are socially ostracized. Heaven is barely a part of it. No, almost nobody is incentivized by heaven, because if you ask them what heaven looks like, they will describe something they made up, not what the Bible says heaven is. Because in the Bible, heaven is everybody gathering and singing God's praises for eternity. It sounds miserable.
Right, and it's always different. If you ask someone else, if you ask if you go asking people, it's always different. So, I mean, that's how I know it's kind of really made up,
Yeah, I agree. And so Mwangi, I would just say that if there's anything I can suggest, it's that you keep getting them to engage in critical thinking and things that are adjacent to religion, or adjacent to, without necessarily directly saying, if you feel like you have to still hide it and you want to keep everything safe and everything, I totally get that. But it's just to get everybody, including your wife, to engage in critical thinking, to see and recognize the benefits of critical thinking, and see if they don't naturally start applying that to themselves at some point. And if it doesn't work them through the religion. But I understand your desire to keep your family together above just being an out atheist and saying, like, we're done with this bullshit. I totally get that.
Yeah, I gotta try that, but I mean, I'm still like afraid and stuff like that, but but I understand what you're saying, man. It's hard, man. Yeah, I don't want to waste much of it. Man, can you say hi to Matt for me, man?
Yeah,
say
of
hi
course.
to that motherfucker, man.
I'll tell Matt.
I know he don't like compliments. That's why, I just say hi to him, man.
I'll tell Matt you were super mean to me, so you could tell him hi.
Yeah, because you guys, when you hear a person is an atheist, You keep us on the hold for so long. Like, I can't wait, man. I gotta drive my truck. I gotta
No
make
worries.
this money, man.
Yeah, no. Yeah, definitely. Get on the road and make that money. I feel you.
Yep.
Hell yeah. All right. Thanks, Mongi.
Yep. All right. I appreciate you, man.
We'll see you.
See ya.
Man, I want to be honest. I was excited for the call that was going to be like, here's how you should be running your channel. You're such a douche. I was excited to be told what my problem was, but I'm happy to make a new friend in Mwangi also, even if I was a little bit let down that I wasn't about to basically, like I was back home with my parents, be told what all my problems are. You know what your problem is? Andrew in Florida, you are on the line.
Hey, Jimmy.
What up?
I
Good
wish
to hear
we
from
were
you again.
nicer. Happy Valentine's.
Yeah, you too. What did you say about being nicer? Did you say you hope I'm going to be nicer?
Yeah, I hope you're nicer overall.
We'll see.
Valentine's, it's... Oh, what was it?
No, I'm waiting for you. Valentine's is what?
Oh, I don't know. It seems like Valentine's is making you a good, giving you a little happy vibe, a good mood. So
No, totally the
I just
opposite.
think
I hate
you treat-
I hate holidays. They make me feel entirely alone.
Oh, I understand.
It's all good.
Yeah. So, my main argument, Jimmy, is
Sure.
according to atheists like you and most people, religion is evil.
No,
So, sorry?
not correct.
Yeah. Okay. Well, generalization. Generally speaking, religion for the most part is bad.
Sure. The utility of religion has been evil, and I don't have a model for how to make a good religion, but I'm not going to say as a matter of fact, religion is evil. It's just prime for evil. I could say this about MLMs. Do you know what MLMs are, Andrew? Multi-level marketing things,
No.
Basically pyramid schemes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The people behind a pyramid scheme are evil. And it's a specific type of structure that we call pyramid schemes or MLMs. I'm sure there are going to be lots of people like, can we sue him for calling all MLMs pyramid schemes? Because they're very, very, they don't like that. But MLMs are essentially the modern day pyramid scheme. And while you could actually think of a way of structuring something like that, as a lot of corporations are, now I'm not a capitalist, so I find them to be pretty evil too, even as I have a corporation and have to operate in this capitalist hellscape. But I could say the same thing about, I think the argument that you're about to make is it's not the religion that is evil, it's the people that are evil within the religion. And I cannot think of, in reality, without creating fictional characters like Superman and bringing them into reality, I can't conceptualize a way to have a religion, which is basically a religion is when you add worship to belief. I don't believe in worshiping. So I can't think of a non-evil way to create a religion, but that doesn't mean it could be impossible. So I'm not going to say, I might colloquially say religion is evil, but then if you ask me to be more specific about it, I'm going to tell you, I have yet to see a non-evil utility, a utility use of religion.
Yeah, Buddhists don't see it as worship.
That's why Buddhists often, by people like me, depending on the Buddhist, until you start getting into things that are close to worship or are close to, are basically worship with a different hat. But most Buddhists, I don't know about most. I shouldn't put numbers on that because that's a fool's errand. There are atheist Buddhists. There are non-religious Buddhists. There are philosophical Buddhists who don't worship anything. And so you're specifically picking a thing that we recognize as a religious category, but actually the specifics of are more unique and nuanced than that. Atheism's the same way. Atheism is a protected religion as a religious category in the US because you have to extend those benefits to the people who opt out of the rest. So they just add us as a religious category. Does that make atheism a religion itself? Andrew, I'm asking. Is atheism a religion if it's a religious category?
Not really.
No, exactly. Neither is Buddhism. Unless you add worship and spirituality and all sorts of stuff like that to it.
Yeah. Okay. I just think saying religion, as a whole is saying that it's toxic and tribal. I think it's unsophisticated. I think it doesn't help the problem. Religion has done a lot of damage, but I mean, fighting dysfunction with more hatred, judging religious people as a whole, is like judging a group of people as a whole for their race. Their religion is the deepest part of themselves.
Andrew, wouldn't it be wild if right now, Andrew, you're a Christian, right?
Yeah.
Why do you believe that Muhammad broke the moon in two? Right?
I don't believe that.
Exactly. And that question fell out of nowhere. And you're like, what are you talking about? You don't believe that. Because I don't categorically judge you with all theists. I agree. We shouldn't judge any individual just according to the religion they adhere. I don't ascribe to you the general position of theism. I don't ascribe to you anything more than if you say you have a religion, your belief has met worship, and I think worship is toxic, and that we can talk about the toxicity in any religion. However, I am happy to be proven wrong. But to come here and go, you're implying a straw man without accusing me directly of doing it. And I take umbrage with that, where you're saying, when you just categorically and you say I've never used the word tribal to describe religion, I think once, because that's not a word I would put with religion. The only time I think I use tribalism outside of like literally talking about whether it's tribes of Native Americans, tribes of old Celtic people, tribes of people who actually live in tribes, was probably this psychological term of tribalism. That was becoming more popular. People have turned on that, and there's a discussion about whether it should be used or not. It probably still slips out from me from time to time. I think it's actually a very adequate word to describe what we're trying to describe, but a lot of people don't like it. So I would say I avoid the term generally. So right now I'm having to defend against, you're putting me in the position where your side is, I think it's wrong to categorize religious people so broadly, and then I immediately show you that I'm not broadly categorizing fucking anybody. And I think it's wrong to describe it as tribal when that's not a thing I would have done in the first place. But are we going to pretend that individual sects of religions don't have a community that watch each other's back? That might be one of the few things I think is good about religion, is the community, except for then the way it's weaponized. And because you don't need it for religion, so it's not actually a unique quality of religion. What is the thing you're asking me to defend things that why the fuck would I defend them? Because I don't feel that. What is the thing you want to disagree with me about? And we can break down the finer differences.
I let you clarify. As soon as I said the first part, I stopped my argument so you can clarify. So I think I was trying to be honest with you.
I get you. So what do you want to, what do we disagree on that you want to confront me with?
You're saying you're not doing it. You're not doing it 100%, but a lot of times religion is most of the time religion is just bad. I feel like that's overall what you're saying.
There is there appears to be an inherently toxic element to religion that I've yet to see an example that doesn't have it.
But that could be said about people, just anybody, as a person. Everybody has toxic traits.
Yep, and all of them.
People have toxic traits. Democrats
and
Republicans
they do.
Have toxic traits.
Oh my God, you're so right. Where do we disagree now? Of course that's all true. And if you have toxic traits as a human, go to fucking therapy and work on them. But if you have toxic traits as a religion, don't ask them to work on them. That is not what we do here. We have freedom of religion, which means don't criticize my religion. If you have a toxic trait, does acknowledging that other people have toxic trait mean you don't need to? This is hilarious, actually. Sorry, Andrew, I'm going to do a very, very short story. So recently, I was talking to somebody, and I'm not going to do this as a call out, and I hope they won't be mad I shared the story, but they were literally talking about like their relationship. And there's like an element to this person's companion that I'm like, that's not. The fact that you are fine dating a person like that blows my mind compared to your values. So like, don't come to me for advice on how to affirm a relationship, because I don't believe in your relationship. That's a bad relationship, that you would want to be with somebody with those values that undermine you and your values. And their response was, my companion, I'm using totally vague things so that nobody can, it's not anybody anyone here knows, but I'm making it as vague as I can, maybe for the security of even telling the story. Their defense was basically their companion acknowledges all of those things. And so because they know they're a hypocrite, no one can say anything. And they basically said that. They know they're a hypocrite, so no one can say anything. What the fuck do you mean I can't say anything? Of course I can say anything. Now you're a liar and an asshole and a hypocrite. The fuck? Just because you think you acknowledged it, so why would acknowledging that toxicity exists everywhere else mean we shouldn't fight a specific type of toxicity? And in this case, a type of toxicity that may be the most pervasive political power in the world, to the point that I'm going to call religion at large, with exception, with room for nuance, a goddamn world cancer. I'll give you that. And look, there's lots of minor cancers exist everywhere else. So why should we worry about this cancer? Because this cancer is killing the whole world. But we should definitely try and kill cancer in individual people too, whether we're talking about literal or metaphorical cancer. In what way, Andrew, would it matter that toxicity exists everywhere else and that's just human, to saying, okay, let's acknowledge that toxicity and now fix it, improve it, destroy it?
You can't destroy politics.
I did not say destroy politics.
I said part of who we are.
I didn't say destroy politics. I said work toward destroying toxicity. I'm not even saying destroy religion. Destroy toxicity. I think the secondhand element of destroying toxicity will be religion will die, because what do you need religion for if not but to convince good non-toxic people to do toxic things? What is left? What is the need of a religion after you remove all the toxic elements of religion, but without targeting the religion itself?
As soon as cultures got rid of religion, we had World War I and World War II and the exact same types of problems.
Right. So Andrew, the problem with what you just said is it's factually inaccurate. World War II was fought by Christians against the world to try and have a fascistic Christian nationalist. And whether or not you believe Hitler was lying when he professed himself a Christian, Hitler used pulpit-based, for centuries, anti-Semitism to influence and inspire patriotism amongst a largely Christian population of Germans. Because remember, Hitler's not the one at the camps literally murdering the Jews. It's Christian Germans doing it. So I don't know what your whole idea of when we got rid of the religion, World War II, you'll find some similar shit in World War I. There are religious components. In fact, to most wars, especially the xenophobia that you need towards somebody to dehumanize them. In fact, we just did that shit in America because we dehumanized people from Iraq, people from Pakistan, people from Afghanistan to feel better about the millions of civilian deaths that happened, because these are scary brown Muslim people and on religious grounds built an entire xenophobic culture who is afraid of them. So the idea of lamenting the fact that people like you and I are being killed as side effects to try and get the few actual bad people who are themselves religiously motivated to be that bad is proof that when religion goes away, when is a good example of what you're describing? Because as far as I can tell, secular humanism's never been implemented.
Cuba, they got rid of religion, and they were still homophobic, misogynistic, and authoritarian, and tribal. All the elements of religion.
I would love
it went to Cuba.
I would love for you to sit here and defend that Cuba was non-religious when it wasn't, and secular humanist specifically. Because by the way, Andrew, I'm not going to tell you that any atheist government isn't possible of being completely evil. As far as I can tell, the North Korean government, you could call atheist because there's no specific God, though kind of there is too. but they take the exact utility that a God fills for usually these tremendously bigoted and xenophobic fucking people. I'd love to see you argue a leftist with a leftist who debates leftism on Cuba. It's not my area of debate expertise, if you will. It'd be very funny to watch. But North Korea didn't just go, we're atheists now, and because of that, society breaks down and we can murder everybody we want, because why wouldn't we? They went, the government is now your fucking God. You're going to keep talking about the leader, the supreme leader, who isn't Kim Jong-un, it isn't Kim Jong-il, it's Kim Il-sung still, is the supreme leader. He's been dead for decades, so there's even a mystical element to their government God. And Kim Jong-il still has a position in the government. He's been dead at least a decade, I think 15 years or so. And then you've got the current Kim Jong-un, who takes over in his 20s because of this sort of lineage that is based in the superiority, this mystical superiority of his family. He's now seeing his own health issues, which might be why members of his family are starting to show up. It may be the case that they're preparing in case he dies for people to understand where the lineage goes, where it goes next. There is not a secular humanist government on the planet that has ever gone, ever. By the way, there really isn't a secular humanist government where you could say this was a secular government and most of the people reflect humanism. But you especially can't say anybody's ever gone to war in the name of atheism or in the name of secular humanism, which would be the only thing I would be here to debate anyway, because I have no problem saying atheists are capable of tremendous evil, but you're pulling facts out of your ass. And why, by the way, why did you say that the World War II was godless in the first place? Because you didn't then defend it when I corrected you. Are you conceding that it wasn't now?
Religion was used, but it was not the intent. The intent was just gaining prosperity through warfare, just to gain resources.
You want to say religion was used?
Religion, it's not a war of religion.
Are you Catholic?
They were not fighting over religion. The Enlightenment already came.
That's so stupid. They weren't literally fighting over religion where you're going to say it was Catholicism versus Judaism. They were just killing Jews because for centuries at the pulpit, anti-Semitism was pretty much a pastime. It was reinforced by the church. You should hate the Jews. They're the sources of all of your problems. That's from religion. If religion doesn't exist, Hitler doesn't rise to power, specifically Christianity. If Christianity doesn't exist, if Hitler doesn't rise to power and doesn't have such an easy time getting people to kill Jews. The idea that it's only a religious war, or that religion's only a problem in the war, if basically it's Team Catholic versus Team Phil and other religion, if it's not literally the Crusades, I'm getting worked up. You should be embarrassed by that position, Andrew, is all I'm going to say. That is a very, very silly position to take. I hope you will concede to save some face, but I doubt you will.
I've read a lot on it. He was a terrible Catholic.
Yeah.
And the church,
doesn't
the Catholic
matter.
Church denounces everything he did. Everything
now,
he did. The Pope
of course
went
they
around
do now.
apologizing in
the
Canada.
Church of the Crusades.
The Roman Catholic Church apologized. Went to Canada. The Pope apologized to the Native Americans for what they did.
Hey, Andrew. Andrew, has the Catholic Church apologized for the Crusades?
They renounced the message.
Have they apologized for the Crusades? I believe the answer is yes. This shouldn't be hard.
Yeah.
So is the fact that they renounced it later and denounced it later mean that it wasn't a religiously influenced mission, that it wasn't a religious war they initiated? Having perfect hindsight, and by the way, it's never even perfect and they take their long ass time, does not remove. Andrew, why did Nazis kill Jews?
They thought they were genetically inferior.
Where did that come from?
They used religion as a cover-up.
Where did that come from?
They used religion to justify it, but they would have used.
Which religion?
Margaret Sanger also believed in eugenics.
Which religion? Doesn't matter. Which religion? Which religion told them?
Catholicism. Catholicism.
And was that or was that not doctrine?
We used guns.
Was that doctrine of religion or not, of Catholicism or not?
It was.
Yes.
And it is not anymore. religion is a human product and it changes by culture.
Great, it's not anymore. Excellent. But don't try and rewrite history by their current standard of not hating Jews means that they didn't hate Jews and caused the atrocities that were World War II. That's the worst
part. The Catholic Church did not sanction that war. No, the Catholic Church did not sanction that war. The Catholic Church
celebrated Hitler's birthday as an official holiday. The first treaty between Hitler and any organization was the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church's interests were Hitler's interests. Hitler began to diverge and try to get power independent of the church, and they wanted him to reel it in and make this more of a Catholic thing. He wouldn't. His ego was too big for even the Catholics. And that is the only reason you can say there was any contention between them. If Hitler had been a good boy and just done what they told him, they would have loved the motherfucker, but he was too rebellious in his genocide. They wanted a less rebellious genocide. You are ignorant, Andrew. The things you have read are the things that Christians want you to believe about Christianity and the things that Catholics want you to believe about Catholicism. Broaden your mind, learn more information, and stop trying to defend. Andrew, if you come back to me and you say, I've actually joined a type of progressive Protestant thing, I'm going to say, good, man. It sounds like you've become a pretty good dude. I don't mind. Stay Christian, whatever. You're not my highest priority. You are currently in the category of a high priority person that we need to it's people like you that is why we do this show. The level of ignorance you are willing to display will, I hope, one day embarrass you, because that'll mean you have improved. That'll mean that you have put in the work. This should embarrass you in the future. By the way, I'm not saying that just to put you down. It's a little bit of a put down, but I am terribly embarrassed by stupid things that I said when I was younger and I still believed in religion, including that the Nazis were an atheist movement. That's one of the stupid things I said that I'm embarrassed by, and I hope you're embarrassed by the implication of that same thing you brought here today, because it's ridiculous.
I didn't say that. I did not say that.
I said implied, and you definitely did imply.
I said they were Catholics. They used religion to be evil and advance their political agendas. And
as religion is.
That's what I said.
As religion is stationed to do. And you listed World War II as people turning their back on religion, despite the fact it was their motivating factor. It's what taught them that their genocides were justified. It's why they felt empowered by Gottesdienst, or however you say it, Gottesdienst, God with us on their belts, the great power that they felt from that. If you really think that these wars are a breakdown of religion, you are trying to miss the point. I'm not saying don't stay religious, but don't defend the worst atrocities in human history as a failure of a society to be more religious. It's quite the opposite, Andrew, my friend.
I didn't say I didn't say religion had nothing to do with the war.
You said World War I and World War II happened when the world turned their back on religion. That was your words at the beginning of this call.
More secular than religious.
False. Fucking false. Show your goddamn data. That's the stupidest thing you've said so far. That secularism in the 1910s, 20s, 30s, and 40s was more popular than religion. That is by far the stupidest thing you've said so far. Please present your data.
200 years after the Renaissance and the Enlightenment.
So you want to say it was more secular than those periods, than 200 years prior? Fine, if you want to make that specific thing. But if you say from here, as we're looking through history, that was a more secular time, a more atheist time, and ignore the fact that it wasn't the secularists and the atheists being the goddamn Nazis. So you want to basically somehow defend the idea that the existence of secularism for basically the first time in human history in little pods and little places that were still ostracized, that were still shit on, that were still fucking killed in the Holocaust, just wasn't the big group. but they also killed atheists. They killed gay people. They killed black people. There were other people in those camps. Those people and the rise of those people who were the victims and weren't the ones marching are the reasons why the Christians just had to kill all them Jews. That's what are you trying to suggest, Andrew? That is insane.
I've explained the nuance, and you're not representing it fairly, but none of us have the sources.
Well, if you're going to lie about data, you got to bring the source. If you're going to cite untrue data, if you're going to cite untrue data, I'm going to ask for it. If you wanted to just sit here and talk you to me and not make ridiculous data claims without being asked to back up, I don't know why you called, Andrew, to make that exact point. You want to say that I'm representing anything unfairly? I've yet to see a single jump. They are the conclusions. Go ahead. I'm going to let you defend how in 1930, we'll say 1935, the existence of atheists, which were not the driving force of anti-Semitism, and sort of incidentally may have existed in more places at that time, leads to a religiously bigoted, fueled mission of Jew killing by Germans who are almost entirely at this point Catholic. Go ahead and explain how the existence of those detached atheists caused that.
The way you framed it,
it's true.
That's a trick question, I feel. But
yeah, it's a trick question because you can't beat it because it's true and you're full of shit.
The Bible nowhere says to exterminate Jews. That's bullshit.
I agree.
Wrong.
I agree.
So,
it's really fucked up that the Catholic Church insisted, especially when people didn't largely have access to the religion, that the Bible did say, or the book itself, and they prevented so many people from reading it or becoming literate enough to read it. It is a damn shame that the Catholic Church, the single greatest Christian power in the world, kept convincing people in the name of God and through the mouth of their speaker, which according to their religion means God spoke it himself from the Pope. It is a real fucking shame that they took that power and turned the Bible into something so effective at convincing people to harm Jews. What a bummer. You and I agree on that, Andrew.
People do that with the Constitution.
Yeah, they don't. They aren't the inerrant word of
philosophy and their politics.
Hey, is the Pope? You're not are you Catholic, Andrew?
People that are the problem.
Andrew, are you Catholic? Is the Pope just a person, or is he the inerrant word mouth of God?
The doctrine is that he's just a person. You know the answer.
No, the doctrine is when he speaks, you're a fucking liar. The doctrine is when the Catholic speaks for God, he speaks as God. Peter. His words are God's words.
Okay.
So the Pope's anti-Semitism was God's anti-Semitism. Defend that, my friend.
Can you cite a source for that?
Cite a source for the Pope being anti-Semitic in the past?
Say it again?
What specific are you asking for a source cited?
That the Pope spoke off the ex-cathedra, off the chair of Peter, infallibly, that God wants the Jews exterminated. So cite a source for that. Yeah. No, do I have it ready for you right now where I'm going to go this time, this place, this book? No. Can I get it? Yes. Bullshit. Is it a
shame? Is it a shame, Andrew, that you aren't aware of your own church's anti-Semitism? Are you trying to sit here, Andrew, and suggest that because this common knowledge thing, I don't have the thing prepared for. I see what you're doing because I asked you to cite a specific data point earlier and humiliated you when you couldn't. And it was recognized that it was a lie. And so now you're trying to somewhat pedantically go, hey, this thing that actually is general knowledge in this general conversation that we're talking back and forth, if you don't have the citation, we should doubt what you just said, while not being prepared to do the same thing I did, which was call you a fucking liar for your data. Go ahead though, if you want to. Do you want to revise it that I'm lying? That the popes have been anti-Semitic? That it has been spoken into doctrine from the pulpit and directed from the Catholic leadership and authority to promote anti-Semitic messages and ideas that go from the very shallow to somewhat deep, complex, more complex things? Is that the position you want to take, Andrew? Is that the position, Andrew?
Here's my position. I don't want no. You're not framing it for me. I'm going to tell you what my position is. I don't want anybody else to frame it. That's honesty.
Is anything I just said wrong, Andrew? Andrew, I'll let you give your position in a second. Is anything I just said wrong? No. First, is anything I just said wrong?
Yes.
Tell me what.
the Pope did not emphatically declare, infallibly, ex cathedra, from the chair of Peter, that God wants all Jews exterminated.
Is that the only time the Pope is considered the mouthpiece of God? I think I said word piece earlier.
Yes. Yes.
You're just full of shit. You're just full of shit. That which is issued down to the church to teach. And by the way, I'm not even convinced of your thing, but it may be the case that he specifically won't talk about Jews when he sits on the chair of Peter. But when you are the supreme authority and you are distributing what needs to be taught in your churches, the idea that you would sit here and go, Catholics would not have understood that to be the word of God. Catholics would not have understood. And by the way, at the time, Catholics would have understood they should be doing against the will of the church because it wasn't really the doctrine. It wasn't really the will. What you are sitting here and defending, that you're trying to make Catholicism and Nazism work as not compatible and not cause and effect, is fucking bizarre to me, Andrew. Apologize for your church and say we're moving on better than that would be one option, and we'd hope for it.
Many of us have apologized for the atrocities we committed in the past. I just told you that the Pope apologized to the Native Americans.
How do you feel? How do you feel? I don't care about the Pope. How about you? How do you feel?
Of course, it's horrible what that happened.
What happened? What's horrible? What's horrible?
We Catholics annihilate the Native Americans in Cuba, Hotway.
In the name of what?
Hotway, in my native land.
In the name of what did you do that, Andrew?
But it's not true. They claim that it was Catholicism.
Right.
But we were wrong. We were absolutely
Who told
wrong.
them they were right, though?
We renounced it, just like Margaret Sanger and in America.
Who told them they were right?
Advocated for eugenics.
When they were wrong, who told them they were right?
Are wrong all the time.
Who told them they were right when they were wrong?
History judges us.
Who told them they were right when they were wrong? Just answer that question. The church, right?
Who? Repeat it again.
Who told them they were right when they were wrong for doing that? Was it the church? You were saying they were wrong.
Church leaders.
Okay.
I don't know if the Pope declared it as infallible doctrine. I don't know.
And I'm sure the Pope. The Pope was totally unaware of anything going on. It's not like that church micromanages and controls down to the point of like finding out when somebody commits a sexual atrocity and like moves that person around. It's not like how would the Pope have ever even heard about it?
Whoa. The Pope cannot manage millions of people. He does not know.
Yes, the Pope can and does.
That's ridiculous.
And the Pope can and does to much smaller movements. Is it going to come down to an individual stealing a car or robbing a gas station? No. But you want to talk about literal genocides of people? That's not making its way up to the Pope. You are either a liar or you are delusional. Anyway, let's get back to your original point about how religion isn't toxic.
If you let me talk, I can explain it.
There's no
getting a word in.
You've already tried explaining it a bunch of times. It's just the same pedantic bullshit of those are the people who did it. And sure, the church told them they were right. And sure, the Pope didn't interfere. And sure, the Pope didn't condemn the Holocaust or anti-Semitism or anything until much later. And sure, the Pope celebrated the birthday of Hitler. And sure, all these things. But now when we look back with all that hindsight, we see they were imperfect, but the church was still perfect. The church isn't perfect because the church is made of people. People are imperfect. There isn't a God to correct the Pope who would then correct anybody else. The Pope succumbs to social pressure. It's why they're becoming less homophobic now, because continuing to be homophobic drains their coffers, takes their money, and takes away your progressivism. The progressivism of your religion never reflects actual revelation. It doesn't change the tide of anything. It doesn't come in and go, hey, before everybody realizes that it's fucked up to be racist, they don't get up on their pulpits and say, stop being fucking racist. It always comes after. The Mormon church does the same thing. It's always, okay, now we're starting to lose money. I think it's about time for a revelation that we should treat black people better. Now we're starting to lose money. I think it's time for a revelation we should start treating queers better.
That's all cultures.
Oh my God, Andrew!
Look back.
Of course it is, because all cultures are made of people.
What people do.
Andrew,
exactly. That's what
Andrew, how do you think this is exactly?
You agree with me.
No, I don't. You're an idiot, Andrew. Andrew, I just told you the reason all this happens is there's no God, just people, and then you said that's what all the people do. You're right. We do agree. The Pope isn't influenced by God. He's influenced by culture and fucking people. That's my point. You then emphatically agreed with it and yet are somehow still a theist. How do you exist in regular society and not just explode every day from ignorance and incompetence? How did you think that was a point in your favor? Jesus, Andrew. Fucking Christ. Holy shit, Andrew. I don't know what to do with you. I don't know what to fucking...
Well, I can't speak, so I can barely
speak. You shouldn't speak. Everybody is... You're right. Just leave. Call back another time. There's no point in this. You shouldn't speak because people lose IQ points listening to you. I know someone will say IQ is not a real thing. I totally agree. It's totally arbitrary, stupid system. You know what I'm trying to say. Let's just be done with Andrew because my fucking blood pressure can't take it. How am I going to sit here and say the reason why... Go back and watch the fucking tape, my guy. I just said the reason why it looks this way is there's no God, there's only people. That's the fucking point. Oh my fucking God. I say there's no God, there's only people, and people are imperfect. And so people, they only do things as they need to because they're selfish, they're misanthropic, they're cynical, and they're assholes. Humanity sucks. And to go and say, well, my church speaks for God, but instead of actually speaking for God and changing things, God's not coming down and saying right now, be nice to trans people, even though 10 to 20 years from now, all the churches are going to realize it. When they start losing their money, they're going to realize, oh, by the way, we got to start being nicer to trans people, that it's not a God thing coming in. How are you going to sit there and go, that's people, that's the church? If the church had God and was the mouthpiece for God, the mouthpiece wouldn't be so far fucking behind everything else. And for you to sit there and go, we agree. If we agreed, you'd be a fucking atheist, you absolute boob. Oh my fucking God. How? I gotta take a beta blocker or something. They're downstairs. I'll do it later. Jesus fucking Christ. I can't imagine even if a God exists and there's a religion that represents him. I just demonstrated to you that it ain't yours. And you respond with, I agree. It's just people. But that makes my point, this being Andrew. This is the type of cognitive dissonance that I don't know what to do with. There's a certain point where I think I am a tactical person. I think I'm skilled at articulating my points. I think I'm good at rebutting things. But if we can't get down to the very fucking core, if I give you the reasoning to basically be an atheist, and you say I agree, but that you believe that supports your theistic claim, I don't know how to fix that. That is a level of delusion that seems unfixable. But this is the man who started with the breakdown of religion causing wars and says World War II, which I don't know if you've heard about World War II, but what was the group that, a religious group was the one that was harmed the most. And what encouraged them to do so? Oh, their religion? Oh, shit. This is that low level, like Brigham Young. Here's the fun thing. Brigham Young, video quality down. Jimmy needs a bit more south. I've got fucking fiber optic right now, my friend. This is the thing the Mormons do with Brigham Young, where they say Brigham Young was being racist. When he was the prophet, he wasn't speaking for God. He was independently being racist, despite saying he was speaking for God. What is the difference between a false prophet and a prophet that there is no distinction between when you should listen to him because it's from God or when you shouldn't listen to him because it's from him, when no distinguishing mark is made, and the then canonical distribution of sermons and things to say and points to make follow from those words? What's the difference? Or Mormons, what's the difference between a false prophet who sometimes says prophecies are from God, and they are, and sometimes says they're from God, and they aren't? They're from their own bigotry. Please tell me the difference. What's the fucking difference? Oh my fucking God. It's so frustrating. You've now all seen me yell. I got full up. That's, I think, the first time on this channel that wasn't being comedic, silly, that I have legitimately yelled. Whew. Hydrate. I don't have any drinks next to me. I'd have to leave and come back. Tomorrow on the Hang Up, Matt Dillahunty will be joined by Eve Was Framed. I hope Andrew calls back. I'm sure he'll have a less humiliating call. I'm fine. Thank you all for your concern. Let me just ask you to tell me how to pronounce this. From Georgia, you're on the line. How do I properly say this name?
It's Takea.
Takea. Got it. That's a nice name. You want to talk about objectivism versus humanism. I'm not sure that those are two sides of the same coin, but I'll hear you out.
Well, I was going to ask what your thought was on it, because I don't think they're objectively dissimilar.
So when we talk about objective morality versus subjective morality, there are multiple ways to push it and to have. So if you want to back out, the opposite of objectivism is subjectivism. Now, that doesn't mean that something can be both things, right? So if I were to say that humanism can only be subjective, then it still is sort of opposing objectivism without literally. The literal opposition would be subjectivism. So then the question becomes, what are we talking about? And so when it comes down to humanism and secular humanism is presently in its form quite imperfect, which also, whether it is true or not, gives the illusion of heightened subjectivism, because it's usually imperfect because the people agreeing on what is the well-being of an individual versus well-being of a group versus well-being of a society versus the well-being of a civilization at large. They're not always right, but we do the best we can, and that's why it morphs and it changes. And as new things, we're approached with new things, new priorities come out. So you'll notice right now, for example, a lot of secular humanists are voicing their support of trans people when they weren't 10 to 15 years ago. And some people will say that as a gotcha. Like, gotcha, you didn't care about this 10 to 15 years ago. Why do you care about it now? Because 10 to 15 years ago, we were wrong not to care about it, and we've recognized that and seen it's different. So then the question becomes, there's obviously a subjective element to any moral system because we fail to live up to the moral system and we fail to objectively identify that which is good for well-being, sometimes thinking we are doing so, only to find out in the long run we did ourselves a disservice. We might have taken caffeine now for the great rush of dopamine we got and the reduction in our adenosines and our ability to be productive for the first 5 hours of the day, but then we were so wiped out, we missed an important event in the evening, and actually that ended up being worse for us. So we made a decision based on what seemed right at the time, and then in the long term, it's turned out isn't right. That's a metaphor. I'm not literally saying that's a part of humanism. So when it comes to subjectivism versus objectivism, one could say there is an objective answer to whether or not, as a secular humanist, a certain action is or isn't better or worse for well-being. Our inability to correctly identify that 100% of the time is because of subjective application. Now, then the question becomes objectivism versus subjectivism. Is it true that that which is moral is that which is best for well-being, regardless of what the actual moral choices or what moral things are being claimed? Is it objectively the case that secular humanism is the moral standard? And that's the one that you couldn't probably defend, but there's both approaches to the issue. So that's my entire thoughts on all of it. I don't know if I answered your question. If you have a specific one, give it up.
Well, just getting into it, objectivists tend to favor capitalism versus socialism. And I've heard a lot of humanists identify as socialists.
Yeah, I certainly wherever you come down on a moral issue is going to influence the choices that you make after. Like imagine it's pretty hard to care about, it ain't not hard to, because there are lots of Christians and theists who do care about other people, but there's an impedance. I learned this word last night. I didn't know impede had an ants form. There's an impedance to your ability to care for other people if at the end of the day you think that we're only at the beginning of eternity, that this life is a vapor. It's what my dad used to like to quote from the Bible, that this life is a vapor, and that any of the adversity a person might be seeing is anything less than just a piece of dust in the wind. Like why does it, in the grand scheme, it doesn't matter. Eternity is still ahead of us. It causes an impedance to giving a fuck about that. It causes an impedance to giving a fuck about climate change. You almost have to appeal that, like, no, you have to care about climate change because you're disrespecting God's creation if you don't, with a lot of religious people, as opposed to we have an earth that we need to protect. Because as far as if you're a religious person, you're like, well, if God doesn't want the world saved, it means it's probably time for the world to be over. Baptize it in fire. Maybe that's global warming, the fire baptism.
Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, See, the thing about being an objectivist is, yes, we value ourselves over anybody else, but that's not to say we don't care about anybody else, because humanity
that's the
as
objectivist
a whole
position
is important.
I think the objective. So what are you saying? You're an objective humanist, or you are a?
I identify as an objectivist.
Okay. Give me the definition then, because we're on different sides of this. Because whether morality is objective or subjective isn't actually the moral position, and it honestly doesn't fucking matter, to tell you the truth. But when you say objectivist,
as far as an objectivist goes, the objective morality, we agree on that.
So what is
that's the topic I was actually going for, is the differences between objectivism and humanism, because we have a lot in common.
Give me the objective position
between them.
Give me the objectivist position, because I think I've misthought what you were talking about.
Okay. The objective position is we value ourselves more than anything else. We value us as human beings more than anything else.
Humanity,
but
right?
That's not to say that society doesn't have a value to us, because society maintains our way of life. And in order to
when you say we value ourselves, do you mean as a collective or as an individual? You value yourself above everybody else?
I value myself over everybody else.
Okay. I don't know why we would put a word to it, because to have a philosophy surrounding that is to acknowledge just what humanity is. Like, there's no way to not do that. The only people I guess there's not no way. The people who kill themselves when they recognize it, those people don't. But every human that is born is a drain on society in some way. We are contributing more to climate change than anybody else. And so to just make the choice to continue living, it's very difficult to offset what you are taking, not from society, but from the world, in all of the things you consume, all of the fossil fuels you burn, all the electricity you use, unless you have a sense of my existence is more important than my individual contribution to all of those things, especially as a member of a collective. Acknowledging that is probably useful, but to then put that as the forefront of I'm very reluctant to say I would join a movement which then tries to put that at the forefront, because it seems like it discourages potential altruism that I would consider rather righteous and just, if you will. That in a moment where you go, I could save this child, but to great danger to myself, so I won't, because I'm an objectivist. That seems to me the slippery slope, but you can tell me if that's not in utility what happens.
Yeah, but see, that's more simplifying something like that. Like, if you were to save that child, would it literally sacrifice your life?
Let's say yes.
Okay, and see, that's the objective. The objectivist position is that you should not sacrifice your life for someone else.
So that's why I wouldn't be an objectivist, because I'm not
absolutely love them.
Okay, so there's, I guess, at least you have the exception. I wouldn't become an objectivist because I wouldn't put that rule down. I'm not saying you should. I'm not saying every child I could save over myself means I should actually, but I don't want to remove.
Okay, but altruism.
Mm-hmm.
Can I interject here for a minute? Sure. Altruism does say you should.
I'm not claiming to be an altruist.
Okay.
And I don't think humanism is claiming altruism either. And in fact, it's these are where some of the autonomy arguments come in too. I'm not going and fucking giving donations of blood every time that it possibly could happen. I'm not getting my bone marrow taken. All the things I could be doing for the benefit of other people that would extend other people's lives, I'm not doing, and neither is anybody watching as often as they could. I'm not saying nobody watching has ever given a marrow donation or has never given blood, but you could do it more. So at some point you prioritize even mild inconvenience at times over life-saving shit. Like, it's sort of, that's the fucked up part of the human condition. So I don't even think most humans are mildly altruistic. But the option of altruism to say you should have this decision made, prepared in the moment before you do it, and altruism would be that your decision should already be yes. You should be compelled already to yes. Whereas objectivism would say you should be compelled already to no. I couldn't take either of those positions personally.
Okay. Well, what I'm getting from you is that whether you identify as objectivist or humanist, you're taking a position, and it's either yes or no, depending on the subjective situation. Sure. And therefore, you're both, but neither, depending on the situation.
If what you say is true, it isn't effectively useful. It's kind of like saying I'm waiting to decide whether or not AI will be good for humanity or bad for humanity. And in a way, as a humanist, because I'm waiting for the individual thing to subjectively determine as those events actually come up, I'm on both sides. Whereas I would say I'm in the position of skeptic who will not predetermine something until I'm exposed directly to the information I need to make my decision. It's a little bit weird to say that I'm both.
And that's couldn't say both. I misspoke there. But skeptic is definitely in both sides.
Sure, but the number 2 is also in the number 3 and number 4, but they're all 3 unique numbers. You know what I mean? So what?
Yeah. So I should just identify as atheist from now on. Because
wait, we haven't talked about atheism at all. What are you talking about?
Well, no. I'm saying, like, versus humanist versus objectivist.
Humanist is not a versus atheist. Objectivist isn't versus atheist. Clearly, from what you're describing, you could be an objectivist atheist.
Objectivists said there is no God whatsoever. There can't be. So automatically
that's still an atheist position.
Atheism.
Okay. Though you accept hard atheism, colloquial atheism. It's still an umbrella of that, but that's fine.
Yeah, we can't objectively study a God, so there is no God.
Mm-hmm. But you want it to basically be known that if a child you have no personal attachment to is savable, but you're getting hit by the bus, you're not gonna run out in front of the road. This is what I'm saying. I'm not saying you're wrong. I mean, you don't have to choose to die for a stranger's kid. It's just a weird position to take prior to seeing the bus.
Oh, prior to seeing the bus, no. But
well, that's what you're defending. The concept of you've already made the decision before.
Okay, let's give a hypothetical. Okay, you
sure,
see
we'll do one more.
Child, but you can't swim.
Mm-hmm. Then how would you save the child by jumping
in the river?
Well, it sounds like you'd both die. That's different than you could save the child.
Exactly.
No.
You could lift him up, but then drown.
Not if you don't know how to swim. How are you getting to the child? You jumping all the way to the child? I'm saying in a situation where saving the child will make me drown, I want to decide in that moment and not have premeditated that I will not do it in that moment. Which it sounds like objectivism is, that you would, when faced with that, go, well, I'm an objectivist, so I guess I just got to keep on living. Despite the fact that selfishly, a lot of us are that way, that we are going to go like, no, I'm not going to die for a stranger's kid. There's a good chance that the kid dies, and it's really sad. And I'm not going to make myself get hit by a bus. I might try and get the attention of the bus and get the bus to stop, but there's a limit to the danger I'll put myself in. But I don't need to make the decision before the bus shows up. And that's what it sounds like you're, as an objectivist, trying to do.
True.
Yep.
Yeah. I agree with that, your logic on that.
Cool. Well, it's a very interesting thing. I'll probably look more into objectivism and see, because this wasn't what I was associated with the term until you presented it, but I'll check it out. Anything else before we let you go?
No, that was it. You pretty much answered my question.
Can you give me the name one more time? It was really cool.
It's Takea.
That's what I thought.
Cherokee Indian.
That's awesome. Cool. Love it. All right. Well, have a good night.
Yep. You too.
See ya. Oh, did I not have the Chiron on that whole time? There it is now. My bad. We're talking to Molly in Georgia, who mistakes me as one of the people highly, the high experts on slavery in the Bible, but I do know a thing or two, so I'll do my best. Go ahead, Molly.
Hey, Jimmy, this is my first time calling in. I'm really excited.
Good to talk to you. Are you on speaker, or are you far away from your phone? Could we get you a little closer?
I'm on. Let me take it off. Is this better?
Yes, that's way better.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
So I'm 19 and I'm like coming out of Christianity.
Cool.
And a lot of my friends, they were like from Christianity, and I was talking to somebody that I know about slavery in the Bible, and I was like, I'm African American, and that's the community that I come from, and I was like, how can you guys, or how can my friends specifically support a religion that supports slavery? And I know all the verses in like Exodus and stuff, but she was asking me for like sources, and
okay,
I just like didn't know how to go about it, because I was like, I don't think we need sources about the culture, if we're taught slavery is wrong, no matter what culture, but like, how do I like respond to that?
I will tell you exactly how as soon as I find the book that I want to tell you. So there is a book on Amazon. It's $10 on Kindle. You can use Kindle from almost any smartphone, and you can use it from most apps. You can also, if you need to, request it at a library. But the book is called Did the Old Testament Endorse Slavery? It was written by a dear friend of mine named Dr. Joshua Bowen. And you read that book and it's got all this, or you make your friend read that book. It has all of the sources. It is definitely the case, discovered by scholarship, agreed upon by historians. The only people who, so the funny thing is what you said at the beginning was a little telling. How can she be a part of a religion which supports slavery? She can't. So she needs to insist it doesn't, but it does. So she has to do mental gymnastics to get there. And if you want the tools, if she's going to do what are you specifically talking about? The great resource I would tell you, because right now I could just tell you like, no, it definitely is talking about literal slavery. Here's one of the ways. Here's another way. But the same thing is going to come up. And so I would check out Did the Old Testament Endorse Slavery? It's been out since 2020. And Dr. Bowen is one of my favorite people in the whole damn world. And yeah, it's a great book. Just check that one out.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, Jimmy. The channel has helped a lot. I'm glad. Interesting. Just like a quick little tidbit, I guess. I came out of religion because I just finally like gave up, and I was like, no, I'm definitely a lesbian, and I wouldn't want to be in a religion that like that I have to, that it won't accept me. So I just said, well, fuck the religion, and I started looking into things, and shit didn't add up. So then I actually found I have a book by Jackie Hill Perry, and I'm pretty sure you know exactly where this is going. And I saw your video on it, and I was like, damn, that makes so much sense. And I found Matt and you and Paula Gia, and you guys have been like such a great help. So like, thank you for all the resources, because all of my whole community is Christian, and I feel like I don't always have anybody to like talk to or listen to, but thank you guys for like being here. I appreciate all the work you all do. If you're in Georgia, I think you said you're African American, right? Yeah. Black Non-Believers, I believe, it might even be out of Atlanta. Great community and great people to check out if you want to specifically see, because I know that it's one of those tough things where it's like, I'm a cis. I come off as heterosexual. I'm not a heterosexual white guy. And so there's a lot of communities that have specific issues that I can't visualize myself, that there's some element of I don't have all the right answers and resources for. And I highly recommend for people who are any word you would put before atheist, there's usually like, there's queer atheist groups out there. And so in that scenario, if you haven't found them already, Black Non-Believers, I believe, has an Atlanta chapter. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jimmy. Thank you for your time. Thanks, Molly. All right. No problem. Bye-bye. Bye. Bum ba-dum bum 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 ba-da-da-dum. I'm passing hiss. There's the sis. That's very funny. We'll do another call, maybe. So lines from here forward, besides the call I have already, we're just I'll leave some lines open in case a theist wants to call in. Don't come in with a bunch of lies. Don't just lie about fucking Nazis. And it'll go fine. The person said, I hope you'll be nice today or something at the beginning. And I was like, but that's entirely up to you. Just don't fucking lie. And then wasn't able to not lie. So didn't happen. But we'll take any theists. We'll probably take more theist calls, but we're capped at atheist calls at the moment. Let me check on, before we fully cap atheist calls, we'll talk to one more atheist. We are talking to Lucas in Brazil. Lucas, you are on the line.
Hi, Jimmy.
Hello.
So I wanted to talk about how to deal with my own religious thinking as an atheist.
Sure.
Because it's a weird thing where sometimes, because I have a lot of anxiety, and sometimes when I'm really anxious, I get the tendency to pray, and I pray to the Christian God because I was never really religious, but my mom's Christian, my dad was Jewish, and I get this inkling to pray every time I get really anxious, and I don't have a fear of hell. I don't believe in God. I don't believe in hell, but I do get this desire, almost a desire to pray sometimes. And I was wondering, and it's also a two-parter question, but the other one is dealing with other people's religious thinking and the way it affects my life.
Sure.
But first, if you want to answer the first part.
Yeah, by the way, so what you're going through is very common. It's very natural. The impulse to pray doesn't go away just because you stop becoming religious. For a lot of people, there are exceptions to that rule where some people, when they have a revelation about something, all the impulses go away, but it's pretty rare. And part of it is because prayer, completely independent of what religion says it does, is a brain activity. And it's basically a form of meditation. It's kind of loud meditation, but there is a meditative benefit to things like prayer. Now, you don't have to have prayer to do it, but the problem arises where you're conditioned to treat types of stress with this kind of thing. So my first recommendation to you is, if that's true of you, if that's the conditioned thing, just try something else that's the same thing, and see if it doesn't change much. Now, some of it's going to be hard because you can't just compel your brain. If you still pray, but instead of saying, God, you say universe or myself, or you pray to or whatever you want to do with it. It's not as though you can just make it substitute one-to-one with no issues. But the first thing, if you want to try an exercise, is try something else. But it's also something that I think just goes away with time as you recognize it more. What's funny, you said it was something you would do when you're very anxious. Was that the word you used, or what was the place you're saying?
Anxious, yeah.
I'm going to tell you a quick story, and it's going to make you laugh, I think. The number one place that I was compelled to pray, there are a few people who know where this is going already, I think, or a few people going, this isn't that story again, is it? I have pretty severe intestinal issues. I'm just going to leave it sort of at that. My digestive system sucks. And if I don't treat it in certain ways, it can cause a lot of pain. And when I was younger, it wasn't being treated in certain ways. It wasn't being treated in useful ways and good ways. And it would hurt tremendously. It would take a long time I'm talking about pooping, people. It would take a long time to poop, but not that it wasn't that nothing was happening. It wasn't constipation. It was just the entire event was taking a long time. And there would be extreme bent over. You ever had a stomach ache so bad while you were pooping that you felt like you needed to take your shirt off? It was that kind of, I don't know and understand why. Yeah, exactly. For some reason, I like had to be naked for it. It would be so bad. It was just strange. It was a strange thing. You couldn't have any pressure on you from the outside. You're in so much pain and you're doubled over. And what's funny is I would get to this point where it would be so painful that I would think, I can't handle this. And God said he'd never give me anything I can't handle. And so I'd pray. And it happened a ton of times where I'd go, please take this. Please take this away. It's too much. I can't. And within a couple of minutes, it would go away. And that was the proof of prayer and the proof of God for me. And so then when my illness still existed after I stopped believing in God, those impulses still showed up. But not only those impulses, but the need to know why those impulses showed up, or the reason to know not why those impulses showed up, but why the prayers used to work. And I found out if I substituted any name in, it would also go away after a couple of minutes. If I said genie in the sky at the same point, it would go away. And then I found out that it would also go away after a couple of minutes if I just said, this is usually where I would pray, but I'm not going to. And then roughly the same amount of time would move by and it would go away. Because it turned out what had actually happened is I had identified, probably through trial and error, probably through, in the beginning, waiting to pray less time and then waiting longer and longer so it would be attached to each other a little bit more. I had been waiting until the peak to the point where it was getting too painful for my body to handle because it was at the climax, at the apex. I don't know which word correctly to say, but it was right at its peak. It was as bad as it was going to be, because right at its peak, it was so painful that I couldn't help it anymore. And I was basically screaming out for help, but it turns out it wasn't actually help I was getting. It turns out I was just identifying the moment before I was at the worst part of the storm, right before the storm was going to get better quickly. Sort of like how last year a tornado hit my house and neighborhood, and right literally within minutes after the tornado hit, it was calm and quiet outside. It was a very fast moving storm. And it was that sort of thing. I prayed during the tornado for the tornado to stop. I didn't literally, but I'm saying it's doing that. I prayed during the tornado for the tornado to stop, and then mistook the tornado stopping by a natural means for my prayer working. And so if you're finding prayer worked for your anxiety in the past, the good news is it wasn't the prayer. You can replace it with something else. You may need an activity still. Maybe it's meditation, maybe it's something to trigger that same response. But it isn't God doing it, which means it's you doing it. Every benefit in the past you got from prayer wasn't from prayer. It was from you. And so you can replace all of that. And what it'll specifically look like, your impulse to do so is not at all surprising. What it will specifically look like is tough.
Right. Yeah, and I have tried meditating in the past, and it has helped with my anxiety as well. Mm-hmm. So I see that I don't think of meditating as something necessarily spiritual or anything like that. I just did it for the anxiety itself, and it helped.
Do you have a companion or a best friend or a roommate?
I do, yeah.
So one thing with anxiety that it's probably the same thing is likely to help if you were getting the benefit out of prayer. One thing about anxiety and panic attacks is often the first thing that helps the most people is externalizing your anxiety, just telling somebody about it. And suddenly it's like, I've done this at like performances or like where I'm at somewhere where I'm expected to entertain people. And right beforehand, I get panic attacks where I'm like, hey, I'm pretty sure I'm about to die. I actually need to escape right now. But if I just say to somebody, hey, I am so anxious right now. Clearly my brain doesn't understand I'm not literally about to die. And my heart rate's going like crazy. I feel this pressure crushing and I'm feeling crushed by this. And often by the end of the sentence, the anxiety and panic has reduced so significantly much that it's now workable. Even just saying in your own head, I'm having a panic attack. This will pass. And acknowledging it is very, very useful as well for anxiety. But if you've got it too badly, there's no like, in the same way that I can tell other people I can mostly manage my depression by diet, that doesn't mean what works for me will work for you. And so I'm definitely not going to tell other people, oh, if you get depressed, just eat better. That's a stupid thing to say. And it's an asshole thing to say because you don't know the other person's experience. So those are a couple of recommendations I have for you as far as things that have worked for me. But if you have access to care and it's still bad and it's still tough, you may need to look into the route of like an SSRI or something like that. To help your brain chemistry hold in a more reasonable place. Your dreams are going to get funky as fuck, though, if you go on those SSRIs. I'll tell you that much.
Right. Well, yeah. Which leads me to the second part of my question, which is, I've been dealing with my mental health lately, and struggling with my mental health lately, and recently my therapist told me to find a support group. And since I live here in Brazil, I'm looking for places here in Brazil. And most of the places I look for, they say like, okay, we're humanists and Christians, right? Or they say they're spiritists. There are a lot of spiritists like mental health clinics here.
Yeah.
And these places, they I don't think they would help me because in the past, I've had delusions about being a high spirit in the spiritist sense that was put on earth to guide lower spirits.
Sure.
And being in a place like that, it just doesn't feel right to me, right? It just doesn't feel like the place where I would find the type of support that I need. And it's really hard to find secular therapists here.
Sure.
I'm very lucky that my therapist is secular, but like even I talked to Matt about this I think a couple of years ago, and he told me to look into the secular therapy project.
Yeah, but they're not in Brazil.
I did, but I couldn't. But they're not in Brazil. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the hard part too, because I was pretty sure that was true, but I just went and looked. They're also, by the way, I used to live in Wyoming. They're not in the state of Wyoming, which is a U.S. state. So there was a time where that resource also wasn't useful to me. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I would say that you're probably best at looking then for online resources and online groups and communities of people who are all, it's hard though, because there's no way to tailor them perfectly, but trying to find a group of people, whether it's online through Discord, Reddit, finding people who are like, hey, I'm dealing with this. I'm in therapy. I'd like to have a group therapy type of thing, but there's not a good option around me. So I'd also just like to have a group that I can call and sort of talk things out with. The hard part with some of those communities is you get people who are claiming to go to therapy who aren't. And you got to be on the lookout for those people who are trying to convince you of things that work that don't, because they have an idea of like, well, unfortunately the phrase like my therapist told me is only true like 20% of the time anymore. I feel like more people use that as a weapon to win an argument anymore than actually go to fucking therapy. The 20% number I just pulled out of my ass before anyone quotes me, but it's depressing as hell. But I would still say that you're going to get good utility out of places where you can say like, hey, here's a group of people I can celebrate my wins with, where I can go and say like, I was having a panic attack about being in line at a fast food restaurant or whatever. But I made it to the front. I talked to the person, I got my meal and I left and I was fine. And just to be able to share those victories and stuff can have a long-term helpful. I'm not in any way qualified to tell you any sort of, give you like straight up medicinal advice. I'm not a therapist. My education, my formal education in the area is extremely limited. It's not zero, but it's limited. I'm telling you as a person who suffers from tremendous amounts of anxiety, and to the point that I have medications, though I don't treat the generalized. I treat symptoms of panic attacks. If I get real bad, I'll take a beta blocker. But yeah, it's very tough. It's a tough situation that you're in. Yeah. And you're going to probably have to be creative to get a solution. But I think a solution's possible.
I looked into some moderated like groups and stuff like that. But even with moderated groups, I found that some of the things they were saying on the forums and stuff were kind of toxic.
Yeah.
And misinformation.
Yeah.
And I really just I wanted a safe place, like a safe space for me to work on my mental health, right? And that's basically what I need to look for.
Yeah. I'm guessing you maybe try and check if there's be very cautious, because just because it's there doesn't mean it's good. But I'd start looking at, there's probably a generalized anxiety disorder. I'm not even saying you have GAD, but it sounds like you're describing GAD. Maybe your therapist has told you. There's probably a subreddit already dedicated, and within those subreddits you'll see discussions, and they often bring up groups they might be a part of. And so it may be a place to get there. You might also find it within certain atheist communities. Right now we're working on our own resources and Discords and stuff like that. I couldn't say there's anything that's going to currently fill the role that you're looking for, but could be in the future.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's good advice. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, cool.
Yeah.
Lucas, anything else before I let you go?
No, you've been very helpful. Just wanted to say thank you, and go fuck yourself.
Thanks, Lucas. Have a good one. What a superpower this is, telling people, because it's true, I am uncomfortable with when people, I think you all saw it in one of the earlier calls, how quickly I tried to redirect. It's very uncomfortable to hear compliments. And this new like super ability of everybody tells me to go fuck myself if they love me or hate me. How will I ever know which ones are my haters and which ones are my lovers? Well, that phrase sounded weird. I replaced God with Gad. That's hilarious. That's very funny. That's funny. Well done. I got cookies. We've got Athena from Victoria. The good Victoria, not the Canadian one. Isn't there a Victoria in Canada? Am I wrong? Well, why would you know that? You're in Australia. Anyway, Athena from Victoria is calling about Muslim culture. What's up?
Hi. I'm a bit nervous, so please don't.
I'm nobody. Yeah. I promise.
So I just have a lot of social anxiety, so I'm looking at the live chat as I speak, and I'm just like, don't want to mess up. But
don't look at the live chat. I would honestly close it for the rest of the call. I have social anxiety too, and if I'm being honest with you, Athena, I fully did not want to do this show before, and I literally decided it's a holiday. They're expecting it of me. I'm gonna do it, and then doing it is what changed my mind. Don't look at the chat. Just talk to you and me. We'll have a good time, and then after the fact, if you want to go look, but you're gonna do great. You can't. It's hard to mess this up. I promise. Just don't lie.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll try not to. As in, I'll try not to look at the chat, not try not to lie.
Good.
Yes. So I want to preface this by saying I'm not an Islamophobe, but I feel like I kind of have to say that. Obviously, like I was an ex-Muslim, although I would say I wasn't quite indoctrinated as some of my peers, but
yeah.
I did grow up in that culture. My parents don't know that I'm ex-Muslim. So, I exist without really, talking about it much.
Sure.
But so I went to a private school here in Australia for that was a religious school, obviously Islamic school. Someone just came into my room. Okay. And we were forced to wear, as part of the school uniform, wear the hijab.
Yes.
So the full head covering.
Yeah.
And my school, they like to say they're a bit more progressive than the average, but
sure.
I feel like anyone looking from the outside would be pretty shocked with the things they made us do.
Yeah.
And my school tracked our period. Yeah.
Sorry, how old was this? How old were you when you started going to the school?
I started I think I was like 8 years old. And the moment you get your period, because there was mandatory praying at my school, I feel like I just gave who I am away. So like anyways, if you were on your period, obviously you can't go to pray. And so, sorry, I'm just getting so annoyed even thinking about it.
I'm right there with you.
They would tell us, so we would have to go to a room where my school was a all-girls school after year 6, so high school was all girls. And they would tell us to report to a teacher that we're on our period, and they would track how many days our cycle was. And there's this stupid thing where there's this optimal length for a cycle, and if you exceeded that, the teacher would be like, "Hey, I just realized you're here, and you've been here for a while. Why is that?" And I feel like.
So wait. You're separated when you're on your period. So it's not just that and that the staff knows. Everybody knows that's why you're gone. Correct?
Yeah, because you're not going to the mosque, and we had male teachers, right? And okay.
Okay. At what age did you have to start using the hijab?
The moment, it was mandatory. It was part of the school uniform. So I think around year 4, no, even earlier than that, it was mandatory. But when you're up till grade 2, it's not mandatory. But when you have Quran class, you obviously have to put it on then. But then
what class?
After Islamic studies and Quran.
Okay.
Religious text studies.
Sure.
Right. Sorry, I'm not Arabic, so my pronunciation of things is going
you're right.
A bit different.
You look at me. Do you think I'm going to correct you? Excuse me, it's Quran. How dare you?
Yeah, so I will pronounce things a lot more, how would you say, like lighter than how they're meant to be pronounced because my parents are Turkish.
Sure.
And so my voice just doesn't do a lot of the deeper pronunciations. But anyways, so we had a teacher tell us that the male teachers were uncomfortable when the girls would stand outside the classroom door because they knew that we were on our period and it was just rude and like, you know, not to decorum.
Wait, so what were you saying? I think I interrupted too. You said if you were there too many days in a row, the teacher would say what? She would take you to the side and say...
She would ask you why your period was so long. Yeah. Because there's this, I forget if it was a hadith or something, but so like a saying of the Prophet, or I don't think it was a verse, but I can't remember. Someone
it sounds
would
hadith
probably
shit.
correct me in this.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's an optimal length for your period, and if so, like obviously when you're a teenager, shit doesn't function properly. Like I do remember like sometimes my own cycle would be longer or shorter than average, right? And so I would be pulled aside and told, hey, you're appearing up, you know, a fair amount. We can call your parents to check if you're actually on your period, type of threat. That was nice. Yeah. And I'm so annoyed.
No,
I brought this up.
This is the most speechless I've ever been. I'm just fucking. So sorry if I can ask.
Australia, it's not even.
So what?
It's a Western country that this happened in.
You used grade numbers, but I'm not from Australia, so I'm not familiar. What age would a person be when it's mandatory that you wear the hijab?
At my school,
yes.
9.
Okay. So 9 years old, you have to put on the hair covering, right? We're not talking like full burqa, just a hijab.
Just the hair covering. So that would obviously be the hair, the neck, right. And like a bit of your chest.
Right.
Yeah. So girls who are a bit more chest, like I'm not blessed. I don't have a chest. So I could get away with like a shorter, like the front portion if it was a little shorter. But then some of my friends who were a bit more busty than I was, they would get snide comments about how they're not covering up properly, and this obviously progresses as you get older and your like body changes, right? Like a 9-year-old won't, but
and the reason why I'm asking is because you're talking about modesty standards, which means at 9 years old at this progressive Muslim school, they're worried about the male gaze and how men will sexualize you beginning at 9, and that you now bear the brunt of responsibility of preventing their sexualization by concealing your sexual characteristics as a fucking 9-year-old. Like, what? That's fucking bananas.
We were told, okay, so I had friends who said, luckily my parents, my dad learned that forcing his daughter to cover up was not a good idea, like wearing the hijab. So he didn't do that to me. So I was lucky. But I had friends who, I know these people, I know their families, and I know.
I see. So the school wasn't requiring the hijab? It was the families?
No, the school was requiring the hijab, but these girls told me that they started wearing the hijab since they were like 2. Like they were a baby, and their parents would put the hijab on them, and then it was it was part of their dress.
Yeah.
And it was because they would literally tell us this, and a lot of when you study psychology and when you study, like, even if you're just doing it for like shits and giggles, right? Like in lay terms, you come across these terms and these ideas and how to like manipulate people, how like what, you know, how a person, like how you can really brainwash a person. And they would literally tell us how to do that. So they would tell us, if you start young, if you tell your daughters or your sons to do X, Y, and Z at a very young age, then they will be conditioned to do that, and they would encourage that.
Yeah, Mormonism's the same way. They don't really they won't say that that's what they're doing. They won't use like terms, and I'm sure yours didn't either. Like, let's brainwash.
Yeah, describe it.
Right. They're literally like, you know, if you get a person younger while they're malleable, which is why a lot of people like to, I mean, the whole concept of teen marriage, which it still exists in parts of the world, is if you intercept a person when they might have been transitioning from their parents to independence and you don't let them and they just change their dependence from their parents to you, you can mold them into your expectations and the things that you want. And it's wildly gross.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
Yes.
I'm so sorry. Like I usually don't get to talk about this, and so just remembering the things that I was told and like I had to live through,
sure.
I'm just getting really angry, and I feel like I'm not really being eloquent. So
no,
I'm
you
so
need,
sorry
and Athena, besides this, you need a place that you can do that. It's sort of similar to the last call. I highly recommend you look for an ex-Muslim community that you can go. I get so much therapeutic benefit just from sitting with my brother at his house and us telling stories of ways we were abused as kids. Literally like, remember when so-and-so did such and such and how this punishment worked and everything. There's a lot you get out of talking those things out with people who have gone through similar things. And then even hearing the way things could have been worse or different or better sometimes. Well, that usually just hurts more, but like hearing the other stories that are tangential can be very, very helpful. And so I highly recommend you seek out that group thing like the last caller too.
I don't think I could because, well, my parents are strict and I can only go to uni, and I do get to hang out with my friends. My parents are okay with that, but I can't tell anyone very often that I'm no longer, you know, I don't want to die.
Right. No, I understand. I definitely was referring to like online communities where you can remain anonymous, remembering to always use an incognito browser and a VPN if it's that level of deep, what's being monitoring of you. Yeah. It's
not fun.
Yeah. I get it.
Yeah. And no, because a lot of times this is seen, okay, what pisses me off the most is when they tell me, oh, the hijab is liberating, or it's, sure, it could be liberating for some people and like wear what you want, I don't give a fuck. But when you tell a child that you have to wear this because some dipshit thought, oh, hey, women should cover up because like I stalked her when she was going to the restroom in the middle of the night. That's how it came. Yeah, let's not go in there. But you have to, it's your responsibility to protect yourself from what I might do to you.
Right.
Or
I might
from
think.
my gaze. Like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
And you're telling this to a child. And I think in some cultures as well, Muslim cultures, there is this thing where very young girls, you know, age of 9 and whatnot, do get married off and are considered sexual objects at that young of an age. And I don't understand how we're okay with this. Like, I just don't understand. And when we
for the record, most reasonable people, well, I wouldn't say all reasonable people aren't okay with it. That's
well, but it's still happening.
Yeah, I know.
And
yeah,
when we try to talk about it, we get called Islamophobic, and that is not to say, like, I live in Australia, right?
Yeah.
I myself, when we were on a school excursion with like the full hijab, we were yelled at, and this doesn't usually happen, but like this random dude, he like was aggressive with us. It happens. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. And I know there's a lot of toxicity towards Muslim immigrants.
Yeah.
And that sucks.
Yeah.
And that should be dealt with.
Yeah.
But I feel like even the term Islamophobia is problematic because what you're saying is you're discriminating, or you're targeting an idea rather than the people.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I tend to agree. Something like Muslim phobia would actually be better than Islamophobia. If you were to say if somebody was actually hateful of Muslims. Unfortunately, this is the case of two opposing sides have used their own evil to shelter the other one, because there are genuinely deeply, we'll call it Muslim phobic in this case, or xenophobic, anti-Muslim people out there who, with their expression of xenophobia, created very real examples of what people are calling Islamophobia. This is like clearly what actually you would say is bigotry toward Muslims. And then evil people, amongst Muslims, evil people over there went, well, now that society is trying to reconcile that, we can take advantage of the overcorrection and use the word Islamophobia as a shield against all things coming our way, against us having very real evil people and religion and practices. We can just use that shield to defend the whole thing. And it's and you now see other religions trying to take advantage of it. I bring everything back to Mormonism because I'm shallow and that's the only thing I understand. But Mormons are trying to do the same stupid shit where they will say somebody's like a Mormon phobe, or they're being xenophobic of Mormonism, or this is anti-religion bigotry. It's funny because like you talk about what you just described, but also things that are happening in the world, like in the Middle East with queers being thrown off of buildings, or my other channel, we participated in literally freeing a trans Muslim woman from a prison in Egypt, a trans Egyptian woman. I don't think she's probably still Muslim, but I didn't care whether she was or wasn't when we decided to help. So I'm not sure. But anyway, you think about that kind of stuff. And then people yelled, "Fuck the Mormons" at a football game. And that's what prompted the governor of Utah to say, I see that a religious bigotry is alive and well. Really? Fuck the Mormons at a fucking sporting event? That's your example of that? This is your revelation of extreme religious bigotry when all this other shit is happening? Fuck the Mormons at a football game is the thing that triggers you? And so anyway, I'm a little bit off on a tangent here, but the shield of Islamophobia is now pretty much as evil as the assholes who were being quote unquote Islamophobic.
Right. Yeah, as you said, a lot of what we would classify Islamophobia is xenophobia, but just targeted towards Muslims. And you bring up Mormonism a lot, and it's like it's
the only thing I have to draw on.
Your videos on, yes, definitely. But I've also watched some of your videos, and I'm following through the Book of Mormon reads on Aron Ra's channel.
Well, cool.
Jesus, how'd you guys read that book? It hurts my head every time. But
have you seen that Aron did the entire Quran also?
Yes, I did. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I just wish I was able to contribute to the discussion, but I realized a lot of Joseph Smith's what would you say, attributes were quite similar to a different prophet that I know. But
you're quite right. There are direct things that sort of expose them both as the scam artists they were, but there's a lot of very conspicuous similarities between Joseph and Muhammad, and you'd even say the grandeur that Joseph started to pursue seems conspicuous to the point that you wonder if he hadn't studied the background and tried to give himself a similar position of near godlike notoriety.
Yeah, and I think I remember reading somewhere that apparently he would quite like being compared to Prophet Muhammad.
Yeah, I think he would.
When people, eventually, picked up on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, well, fuck. That's not something to...
Athena, let me ask you this. Well, I'll tell you two things. Yeah. First of all, one, I assume Athena is a fake name, and it's awesome. It's one of my favorite names in the whole world, actually. If I had a kid, it's like top 3 daughters' names would be. But two, is there a safe way for you to send me the information about the school, especially if you can find like an honor code or some sort of like if there's somewhere on a website, their rules and all of that stuff. I can understand if you don't want to send me like Instagram or Twitter DM or an email. Instagram DMs are probably the places I most often see messages that come in. Everything's always sort of, it's always a roulette on whether or not I'll see any message. But is there a way you can safely to one of those 3 send me even the website or any resources that exist for that school?
Well, a lot of these rules aren't written down.
Sure.
They're told, but they're not going to be advertised.
Right. Not a PDF on the website necessarily.
Yeah. So I'm like, this is what we do to your daughter. Like, my parents didn't know that they were tracking our periods, for example, until I told them.
Sure. And I wouldn't do a big expose on them without your permission or anything before we would talk about. I wouldn't do some big. What's the reason why I like to gather these resources and when I hear these stories is sometimes you can find out about, you can track through their website parts of larger organizations they're a part of. I don't know how effective it is with Muslim stuff, but it while they might not directly have the rules, we may be able to connect them to the organization that is providing those rules. And so it'd be interesting.
They are connected to a bigger organization, which isn't actually Australian. It's overseas.
This is my shock face. I didn't make a face.
I can't see your face, so
I know.
I don't know what that looks like, but
it wasn't shocked.
They even that organization here, when it operates in different mosques, they get a little culty. The things they say and what they want you to do. It's just like, why am I here?
But they're the progressive one, right?
Yes, so you would be surprised. I know of this is I don't know if I can share this, but like as in if it's okay for me to like continue. But
oh, good.
I had a friend who went to a different Muslim school. They were from a different organization, and multiple people told me this. And apparently, what would happen is when a male teacher was walking by, that teacher would get announced. So all of the female students or teachers would know to look down or like to cover themselves.
Wow.
What you will.
If there's a way, if there's a safe way for you to communicate to me, do send the information. Because I'm terribly curious in the most morbid sort of ways, and also wanting to know if there's a bigger thing to expose, but at the same time knowing that depending on the stakes of exposing such a thing would also depend. I'm not trying to die to expose a Muslim organization. You know what I mean? But figuring out what we're trying to do.
I'm worried I got you canceled.
I give a fuck. I'm tired of doing this anyway. Oh no, I have to just do woodworking all day. Boo-hoo. I'll be fine. No, okay. Anybody who's I've done a couple of videos. I know there's at least one that's still up because I had problems with another one, but I know there's at least one video on Jimmy Snow of me responding to a Muslim apologist about evolution, and I think the pun is lost. The title card says it's all or nothing, as in the phrase it's all or nothing. So it's all or nothing. But I don't know if anybody got it. Anyway, that's on the Jimmy Snow channel if you're interested. I'm sure if you typed in
I I've seen that one.
I absolutely reserve the right to criticize the fuck out of Islam, and I find people very shallow-minded who make a special exception for Islam, who absolutely, at large, as a part of their core system, it is the problem, promotes purity culture, promotes queerphobic positions, and to be a progressive Muslim that doesn't do those things, you actually have to let go of parts of the religion in the same way to be, and the fact that people understand that about Christianity and go like, yeah, the Bible, for sure, that's true of Christianity too, but don't you say the same thing about the Muslims, is fucking ridiculous. We absolutely should call out all bad ideas where they exist, but we shouldn't make it about the individuals. And if I meet an individual in the hijab, I'm going to still be nice to them. And I'm not going to try and correct their behavior, because the fucked up part right now is, even if I did convince them to take off the hijab, because that's a terrible modesty thing, if they're still in that culture of people, people will have fetishized that look. They will be in danger. It's kind of like how I'm so pleased to have grown up Mormon, where there was a total stigma around cleavage and breasts, because boobs are the greatest thing in the world to me now. And I almost don't want to risk losing that by going back in time and not being Mormon. But unfortunately, it can put people in danger. So Islam doesn't get a pass just because there are bigots just on the point of, I'm happy to be critical while avoiding bigotry. And the concept that criticizing Islam and calling a duck is somehow Islamophobic, you can miss me with that stupid shit. So don't worry.
And I did say, I did say my school and the community that I was in was, I suppose, a little bit more progressive. I say that, but that doesn't mean they're not transphobic or homophobic.
It's a relative term.
Yeah, very wrong.
Yeah.
They were all of the not nice.
Mormonism is more progressive than fundamentalist Mormonism and less progressive than reorganized Mormonism. So it's, but doesn't make them progressive, just relative to others are progressive. Yeah. Well, like I said, if you can safely send those resources along, do. I won't be offended if you're worried about like it being left on a computer or somewhere somebody could see. On Instagram, my username is just Jimmy A. Snow. It doesn't mention Dear Mr. Atheist. It wouldn't stick out as just a username, though if somebody already knew who I was, I'm just saying that might be one of the safer places. Twitter might be the same now. Twitter's also Jimmy A. Snow. But my email's Dear Mr. Atheist, so that might be the one to avoid if you're worried about somebody seeing it over your shoulder.
Oh, no, it's okay. I'll manage. Don't worry about it.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you, Athena.
Thank you so much.
Have a good one. I will want to hear more stories in the future, but I'm overloaded with how terrible those were.
I'm sorry.
No. I'm just saying, I think I can't do more now. I'm not prepared. but sometime. Thanks, Athena.
Okay, bye. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye. Well, that's hard to listen to. And I know that I have an awkward face. And when I'm very uncomfortable, I tend to look happy. I tend to have like a weird, like, shit-eating grin on my face all the time. That is what I feel inside does not reflect what my face looks like. Holy fucking shit. I just can't. It's funny to remind myself that there are worse modesty religions out there than Mormonism, because Mormonism is pretty bad. Like, even if you try to make some of the things work, at the end of the day, Mormon temple garments for women are by them, the things people call magic underwear, are modesty garbage. It's a total double standard. Men are allowed to be topless in certain situations like swimming and stuff, whereas women should be covering up a lot. It's just, it's fucked up. And the concept of teachers separating you and treating you, tracking your period, and for 9-year-olds to need to cover up for fear of turning on an older man. What a fucked up fucking word. And again, just a reminder of what she said. She was a part of what people consider progressive Islam. the more progressive end of it. Like, that's fucked up. Anyway, we're going to head to, what is the percentage of Mormonism? I don't know what that percentage of what Mormonism? I don't know how to answer this question. We're going to do super chats and then call it a night. That button did work. Okay, there we go. And so if there's something you want me to read out, generally we cap these at $5 or more. There's not tons of them in or anything, so I think $5 is fine. Any question or anything you want to read, do that, or just send super chats. Otherwise, we got to sell the show to Mr. Yum Yum. This is the wrong one. Let's do that one. Y'all remember Mr. Yum Yum on yesterday's show? He tried to call me the R slur. I don't know if it successfully got out to everybody else, if my mute button was faster. I was also on my garbage microphone yesterday because we were working on stuff. I think it's fixed. We've done the show so far, so it looks fixed, right? But I don't know whether it's going to break again when I try to run like the same shows that it broke on before. So we will see. Don't miss tomorrow. And then Matt Dillahunty's The Hang Up with Eve Was Framed. Don't miss Thursday's Transatlantic Call-In Show with, I think it's Katy Montgomerie. And let's see if we confirmed. I believe Jesse Gender. We're just waiting on a final confirmation, but had tentatively said yes. Because I thought it would be interesting to have her back. We'll and stuff. Anyway, Nellie Wilson says, thanks for all the great shows. Hashtag FU Jimmy and your 5 years. That's right. 5 years I've been a YouTuber as of today. I have my first 3 episodes of Dear Mr. Atheist because I wanted to have I wanted, if somebody found the first video, for them to have more videos to see on day one, that they could see a consistency in content from the first day in a way that I had a back catalog, even though it was only of 2 more videos. So my first 3 episodes were published today, 5 years ago on my other channel, Jimmy Snow. What did I hit before they sent? I'm not good at keeping track of. Y'all think that I'm keeping track of shit way better than I am. Stewie. Somebody mentioned Stewie. I don't know, you might be able to imagine that my throat is a bit sore right now. If you're doing Stewie, might be a little bit off. It doesn't feel great. I am a little hoarse from screaming earlier. That was wild, though. If you just got here or you've been here since, go back at some point to the call with Andrew. I fully yelled by the end to this motherfucker trying to lie about Nazis and whether they were just being people and not Catholics when they were doing that shit. Yeah, Mr. Yum Yum would make a great fast food chain. Mr. Yum Yum probably is the name of a place you can eat somewhere. Nate E says, well, happy anniversary. Here's a little toward your SS table saw. It's so choice. Saw stop is what SS stands for, not the SS. Saw stop is a table saw that I am hoping to one day achieve to have. They are very, very expensive, but you can literally have it running and touch it with your finger. It shoots a break into it and stops it from cutting your fucking finger off. It's incredible technology, but they're like the one that I want, the full kit and everything. It's like $4,000. And I wouldn't call myself close. Once I launch those paddles that I'm going to be making and selling with the scripture spare the paddle, spoil the sub on them. I think I'd have to sell like 100 of them to be able to get a saw stop. But maybe, I got a platform. That's 100 of them at a decent premium. I've been thinking the perfect price for a fine, handcrafted, woodworked maple or cherry paddle. I think the best price for that would be $69. Anyway, Shasta X says, Jimmy, on the forefront of the more robust pushback that we need, the religions that are on their deathbeds are going all in. All the progress could be lost. Yes, I have noticed that too, and I'm hopeful that we're correctly identifying these as death throes. But if they are death throes, you got to keep holding it below the water and make sure that it, as fucking morbid of a murder metaphor this is, you got to make sure that you finish the job. I hope it's true that they're death throes. Such a Days says, my new song is about my struggle with religion and death. Happy Valentine's Day, Jimmy. Very cool, Such a Days. I like music that goes to deep places and clearly was inspired by real shit and wasn't just laying down a new order of the same 4 chords and 808s. Excuse me. Kathleen Moncleef says, a very congratulatory go fork yourself and the dope shirt that you do. And the dope shirt that you do. Oh, shit. Oh, because you can't swear. Go fork yourself and the dope shit that you do. That's right. I'm Jimmy Snow. My channel is dope and I do dope shit. That's going to be my forever. Yes, a canoe paddle. That's the type of paddle when I say put the scripture. I assume you're referring to our joke, but when I put the scripture, spare the paddle, spoil the sub on it. Yes, it's a canoe paddle. Yes. Toy Ranch says, it seems like every Exmo use how many generations their family in Mormonism and what rank family achieves as a flex. Please explain why. I don't know if they do that. I hope I don't do that, though I know it comes up. My dad was a convert and my mother was born in, but my dad was our primary source of indoctrination, not my mom. And so I don't think I do it. I don't know. I don't have any street cred, but I'll tell you, it's because of street cred, because that's a real thing. And I feel like I don't have much of it as an ex-Mormon, to tell you the truth, because I didn't go on a mission. I didn't get a patriarchal blessing, and I never got my endowments. The only temple work I ever did was baptisms for the dead. I did operate as a deacon, which are the people who pass the bread, teacher, which are the people who prepare the sacrament to be blessed and broken. So get everything up there. And then as a priest, because teacher has nothing to do with being an actual teacher, and it's fucking weird. And then as a priest at 16 years old, I performed, I broke the bread. I never was the baptizer, despite the fact that I was responsible for people being baptized. I was never the person who physically baptized somebody else. It was usually the missionaries that we're a part of because it counts toward their scoreboard to do so. Let's see. So anyway, that's why, but there is a level of like, especially I feel like the number one piece of street cred you get from an ex-Mormon is whether or not they went on a mission. So it's a weird street cred thing, how badly you were indoctrinated and stuff. And I think there's also a level of like, if you tell people like my family's part of the fucking like the Monsons from Utah, the Utah Monsons, people are like, oh, because it sort of gives you an indication of how big your inner cult was besides the overall cult, because your family is usually basically a second cult. And so ours was that way, but ours was small because it was just me and my 12 siblings, though most of the time it was never all 12 at the same time. It was me and like 6 siblings at the most. I think 7 of us in the house all at once was the largest it ever was. And so, yeah, it's also about that, where it's kind of like, oh, I'm familiar with that. I know what you're talking about when you say you're it's kind of like Mormonism has tiers and royalty, and like you have the top families and then you have the knights, which are the general authorities and all that stuff. Yeah. When I said I didn't have my endowments, Jimmy is not endowed. That's funny. Poor guy. You're right. It's hard to find. Well, when I haven't shaved, it's harder to find. Bump, 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 bump. What am I doing? Get out of here, Jimmy. But we got more super chats left. $5 or more. Your question or statement will be read out. Get them in. We will end the show once they are ran up. Send me your $10 Valentine. I'll just be a bunch of people's Valentines today. Excuse me. That's the result of yelling earlier. My throat is not so people don't believe me. I think often when I tell you I don't speak above a whisper in real life. Not much. My natural speaking voice is about here. I don't raise my voice. I don't talk loud. I don't feel the need to talk loud. This is where my throat is the most comfortable. I could talk like this all night. But I'm currently in my Jimmy Snow, Mr. Atheist. Hey, listen, this is what we do. This is how you perform. And this is how you appear more charismatic than you. By the way, there was another part of also when my voice is down here, I'm not looking you in the eye. It's just not going to happen. It's going to be a lot of this type of talking. That's my natural state in real life, but a camera's not a person. Easy to look at, easy to talk to. TVs aren't even really people. They're TVs, even when there's people on them. That separation is easy to figure out when you're on a Zoom call or whatever. I currently am speaking in a voice that is being strained by the fact that I yelled earlier. I'm trying to yell through it now. Anyway, also known as says, for me, today is the anniversary of a close friend's death. I left Christianity about a year ago, and I don't know how to talk about loss and grief outside of a spiritual context. I feel incredibly angry and alone. Here's the thing. You didn't know how to talk about it when you were a Christian. Not right. Because the process of grief and death in religion is pure denial. And it's one we can't entirely embrace even when we are religious. I'm not now, but I used to be when I'm using these when we were terms. It's something we couldn't fully do because you're still crying. You're still devastated to lose them. Sure, you can say that it's because you're going to miss them for a long time or their contribution to your life and whatever, but it's still devastating. And so some part of you knows there's loss. So the honest answer is you need to figure out what grief looks like for you. Therapy can be helpful, but there are lots of resources out there. A lot of people, I think, feel a sense of jealousy almost. Like, well, religious people don't have to go to the depths we go to. Don't have to accept that this person I loved is gone. Everything that I associate with them, that I experienced of them, the potential of a future experience like that is gone. I have fond memories and I can find happiness, but it is devastating that they simply don't exist. They don't act, they don't think, they're gone. It's fucking tough to come to that. And it should be. Like, that's the thing that's sort of wild to me is there are lots of people who look at, well, what do you do about death when you're an atheist? You mourn. You cry your fucking eyes out. You experience loss. You experience devastation. Now, first of all, when you cry your eyes out, it's not forever. Your brain actually will recognize the crying and the grieving you're doing. Your brain will identify, I got to start healing this. This is damage. You're fucked up. You're traumatized because it is a trauma. You are traumatized right now. I'm the brain. I got to help this and I eventually will. And it gets easier with time, but fucking why should it ever be easy? Easier with time? Sure. But there's a jealousy to baked in denial where we're going like, fuck me, man. If only I could just go, fuck, I'm so sad they're gone, but at least I'll see them another day. And if I'm wrong about that, I won't know until I'm dead. I understand being jealous of that. But think about if you died. Wouldn't you kind of hope somebody felt enough about you to grieve? Wouldn't it mean something to you to know that the people around you would experience that loss and be like, fuck, this is the worst thing. This sucks. I'm almost offended by the idea that people would be satiated by if I died hearing like, well, you'll see him again. And it's like, okay, that's true. I feel better now. Fuck that. If you and I are close, be fucking devastated. Like, if I die, be devastated. Because if you die, it's going to fucking destroy me. And I think it should. But grief and things that destroy us don't have no mechanism to heal. And religion tries to convince you they don't. And that you should be using this instead. And you shouldn't. You should use healthy ways to get over trauma. Healthy ways to get over things that are sad. But Jesus fucking Christ, why would you, your friend who left, your close friend who died, they're your close friend. Respect their memory by hating that they're dead. For real. I don't know how people are going to take this. This might be tough love. I hope that it sucks that they're dead. Because that means you had a fucking friendship that was super real. I'm not saying I want it to paralyze you. I don't want it to stop you from living your life. Don't stop living your life. Of course, live your life. And fucking cry every time you think about them and a nice memory pops up. Not always every time, but eventually it's going to be less and less times. And at some point, I had a breakup in the past. I'm not going to say which breakup it was or let anybody track anything. But one day I found a thing that was part of a good memory I had with a person who wasn't very good to me. A person who I have lots of negative memories with. And we had ended up having a conversation, that person and I sent a picture of the item and I said, hey, this from this memory we have, I found it. And they basically said, oh, I'm sorry, you should probably throw that away. It probably doesn't make you feel very good. And I was like, no, I'm not going to, because this is part of a good memory. I have no problem remembering the shit memories, because there were lots and they were significant. And you know what? I want the reminder every now and then that I wasn't just an idiot and being with somebody who I'm not compatible with. I wasn't just doing it for stupid reasons. That even this person who I don't feel very positively about afterwards, I don't resent or hate. And some part of me always will want to have something back, but I clearly have no problem remembering all the hard, bad shit. Why the fuck wouldn't I want to break that up with some of the good shit? And at some point with the grief of death, losing somebody to a breakup, they're not really comparable. But at some point, the memories that devastate you stop being just... Sometimes the memories morph. And it's like you have this list of these memories where you think back, and every time you think back, you just are devastated and you cry and you feel terrible. But eventually it turns, and that same memory that used to devastate you just brings you joy now. Just brings you happiness. Funnily enough, I've lost people, but the exact thing I'm talking about is the thing I still have with my old dog, Sammy, that a lot of you, if you followed my old show, would have at least seen a video or two that she showed up in. She didn't show up in many, but she showed up in a couple. And I love that dog fucking more than any person I've ever known. And that's not an exaggeration. It literally, like, I've lost people I was very close with and it hurt. I lost her and I felt like I was dead. Like that I didn't have anything left. It used to be every time I'd remember something, I'd cry. And I probably still will cry about a lot of things. I could probably tell you these stories. But now a lot of it's like I get a little bit welled up, but it's more sweet now. Things that I think about with Sammy. And I'm glad that I had such a great relationship with Sammy that her dying killed a part of me, because it did. Part of me died with Sammy. And I'm so glad I had that with someone, a dog in this case, because that hasn't really happened in response to a death. In fact, most of the deaths, well, that's not true. I've had a couple of friends die that sucked, but most of the death that I've been exposed to in my life was expected. By the time you almost pre-mourn and you're like, yeah, it makes sense. You're old, you have dementia, you died a year ago. If anything, I wish you would die because you're suffering. And it seems like I'm not suffering, wasn't my problem or anything, but seems like you'd be happy you're dead. Not literally, you can't be happy at all, but seems like you are tired of living. And if you felt like you actually had the choice, you probably wouldn't choose to do so still. So it's complicated, but fucking like you got a lot ahead of you. You have a lot of life ahead of you. So you can't let it paralyze you from living that life. But let it fuck you up. Why the fuck shouldn't it? If it didn't, they weren't a close friend. That's pretty much it. Like the fact that it sucks so bad is they're a close friend. I feel like I would just go in a circle if I kept going from now, but okay, we don't have to be pedantic about the phrases move on versus move forward. Fine. Yes, you don't move on, you move forward. I would argue they're the same thing. But whatever you all want in chat, you can have. Big Guy Simple Production says bald head Jimmy looks awesome, dude. Own it. Looks awesome, dude. Own it, dude. Nice, Jimmy. I don't know where the dudes and stuff were. I don't mind being bald, by the way. This isn't if you've heard my angst about, I mean, there's a few weird things. So the fact that there's actually hair where I'm touching now and I can feel it, but it's lighter, so it makes my hairline look worse. But also, there's like these like lines in it, but I don't care. I don't mind this part. I could take this back down to bald. I need this back. I did not like being, I would say I triggered long treated levels of dysmorphia, not dysphoria, because there are people who don't know the difference of words. I was rather dysmorphic when I was younger. In fact, I was underweight thinking I was overweight. There was a time where I was 163, I was 6'3" and 155 pounds with a large frame, because I am a large framed person. I'm currently 6'2", and much heavier than that. But there was a time when I was 6'3" and 155 pounds thinking I was fat. And so I was dealing with dysmorphia that basically came because of my family. And so I treated that and went to therapy and was able to not hate myself when I would gain weight and stuff. And then I felt levels of it come back when my jawline disappeared. When this all was filled in with just skin, I did not like it, and it felt very bad. And in a way, it means that I'm currently in denial about some of that dysmorphia and just avoiding it by growing it back in. But I can only fix one part of my character at a time. As we've already identified, I'm this tremendous narcissist. I got to work on that before the dysmorphia. Anyway, I appreciate that. I genuinely don't mind being bald. I mean, okay, the one thing I don't like is I don't want to be mistaken for being like a skinhead. I don't want to be mistaken for being racist, you know? But I wouldn't care if I had to be bald. Just a beard. Eddie Dean says, so my wife died 2 years ago. What would be wrong with practicing religion in hopes to see her again? I'm no longer convinced God exists, but our past denomination would say I'm still saved. Thoughts? If you aren't convinced, practicing religions in hopes to see her again, if you don't believe, what would be right about doing it is sort of the thing. I'm not going to try and take you away from anything that gives you a little bit of hope. I'm not going to try and take you away. I'm capable of doing some insane looking things. I've since Sammy died, talked out loud to Sammy, knowing she didn't actually, there's no way she was hearing, but doing the exercise, right? Again, I'm not trying to compare a dog death to a wife death. These aren't the same things. It was just significant for me. So for me, it's just a matter of this is probably a coping mechanism in the short term, and I'm not going to tell you to stop doing it, but I don't worry about what would be wrong with X. I worry about what would be right with X, or what would be the point of X be, especially if you don't believe God exists. What is it you're worried to lose if you don't do it? You know, I don't know why you would do it. And especially if you're sort of acknowledging that you're doing it just for comfort. But in reality, you lost your wife. Let that suck, because it should. And you'll heal with time. You really will. But for now, you lost your wife. That should end part of your world. You should die a little inside, not literally. Let that happen, and you'll rebuild. You'll regrow, and you'll move forward. But I'm not going to explicitly say don't do that thing. If that's the thing for you right now and you're not harming any other person with it, you are not anywhere close to high on my priority list of religious practices that we need to address. You are at worst or at best. You're engaging in denialism. Don't hurt anybody else with it, but I'm not going to take your denial away from you if that's where you want to live. And I don't mean that that sounded maybe condescending. I don't mean it that way. That's what you're doing right now, then that's what you're doing. But I would tell you, the part of you you're trying to keep alive in denial, just let it die. RPG Debunks says, unfortunately, we both live in the States, so here's about 1/100th of your cost of your future blood pressure medication. Yeah, I was just saying, hey, here's a small breeze toward your insurance premiums. Mine are insane. My premiums are insane. Alec Base 100 says, for backup hydration on standby and nearer to where you are recording. Thanks for the efforts and having such conversations. Joel. Yeah, so I usually make sure, like, I've got empty mugs and stuff around me, and I started this with this, but I only had like a little bit left when I began, maybe like a third. So I got a drip and get a little lube down the old throat. Do with that what you will. Yeah, I should have prepared better. But when I am the only one on, I don't want to walk away. Though I could, I guess. I could have put music on or something. Chakuseki says, love you, Jimmy. Why does my YouTube algorithm recommend videos like evidence that Nephilim are real, even though I'm a hardcore atheist? Happy V-Day. It occurs to me that I don't know how to pronounce that word because I've never heard it. I've only read it. Nephilim, maybe? So it means that a lot of people who watch that kind of stuff either hate watch that kind of stuff and like watch us, or people who hate watch us like watch that stuff. It's basically the algorithm saying, usually, if we send somebody who watches this thing that you watch, we followed up by sending this, they usually click it because the algorithm is designed to just keep you here. And if you fall for it once, it makes it worse. But sometimes it's nothing you've done. Then there's also, if it's an ad, if it says sponsored on it or anything like that, that's because it means our channel is being, what's the word? Targeted. Nephilim is what I'm being told in chat. Nephilim. See, I'm Mormon, so Nephi, limb. Nephi being the main, the first protagonist of the Book of Mormon. By the way, that wasn't a slip up. I'm just going to start saying I'm Mormon from now on. I'm technically on their records. If those motherfuckers won't excommunicate me, then I'm a member, and I speak for them now. Let's see. Nephilim is what somebody else said. Nephilim. Well, now you're all playing with my feelings. I don't know. All I know. Okay. Sorry, I'm curating at the same time. Raven 200, I love you, Jimmy. That's all of a sudden. Thank you, Raven. Oh, I like you. And so I'm not going to go off on my rant, but there is, for anybody listening, Jimmy Snow believes that there is no reason to ever use the phrase all of a sudden. All of the sudden is worse, but really only barely, because all of the sudden makes even less sense and isn't the original phrase. All of a sudden is a useless, clunky phrase. Suddenly is always better. James Call says, Jimmy, the hair is growing back great. Yeah, thank you. It doesn't take me long. This is just about 10 days worth. And I've got, enough I could pull them out with my nails easily. Like I've got full grips. I can slow down my slide off there. Chakuseki says, not going to lie, after watching your stream with Forrest, I bought 100 kilograms of popcorn. Well, that's good. Because, yeah, there's probably going to be lots more of those. Let me convert 100 kilograms. 220 pounds. That's a lot. I assume you're exaggerating. Because when you first said 100 kilograms, I used to work in a lab. So I was like, that seems like, I'm feeling like that's a lot. And then 100 seemed impossible. Have you ever seen that Limey Show clip? I've got a question for you. What's heavier, a kilogram of steel or a kilogram of feathers? That's right. It's a kilogram of steel because steel is heavier than feathers. And then you just watch this person fall apart as they're trying to explain to him. No. They're the same weight. It's a kilogram of steel and a kilogram. I don't get it. No, but look at how much you got over there. That's cheating. It's very good. It's very funny. The Raven 200 says, hey, Jimmy, your Stewie Griffin voice is seriously amazing. I used to be good at impressions. Then my balls dropped. Yes, well, I'll also tell you that I haven't been practicing it very much in a while. I used to do most of the super chats with this voice, but I could use a little bit of a refresher. I'd have to watch lots of Family Guy and repeat myself after Stewie speaks, which I don't watch that much Family Guy anymore, so. American Dad, however, I still eat that shit up. Way better than Family Guy. The Raven 200 says, just wanted to thank you both for your entertainment and your knowledge. I appreciate people like you, Aron, Matt, Forrest, Shannon, etc. And I know compliments are uncomfortable to you. So go play in traffic, Jimmy. I'm on my way. We've only got one more. If you want the show to go longer, right now is the time that you're going to want to send in those super chats. Anything $5 or more, I will read out loud on the stream. But otherwise, I will call it a night and take some Benadryl, if you know what I'm saying, because of the thing I said earlier. All right, if you don't know what I'm saying, don't worry about what I'm saying. Yeah, but otherwise we'll go here in a moment. However, the last one from Joe Hobson. One of my first sessions as a dungeon master was a Valentine's Day themed festival of love in which multiple people in my party ended up losing some of their clothing. Not super relevant, but fun. This sounds like the kind of D&D session I've never been invited to, and I'm terribly upset about. Though if you were my dungeon master, you'd probably be rolling for me to put more clothes on, is the reality of it all. Surely that doesn't work. This person who wrote clip timestamped for a short and the thumbnail, 229 CST at the line. Is that just for our information, or did you just put a command that will work? Because if so, that's incredible. But I don't, you put it with the exclamation. I can't imagine that that YouTube now has commands like that, but that would be incredible if it does. It looks like that's it though. Yeah, that sounds like a really cool, like the type of nerdy orgy I want to find myself in. We did a sexy D&D session and everybody ended up fucking. Everybody got laid all the time. That sounds fucking dope. Patrick Stewart's hard to do. Ember can do all those. Because he's got that sort of, that's crisp but solid. Hello, Smith. I can't do Patrick Stewart. Not at all. Morgan Freeman, I can't really do any of those voices. I mean, everybody does Yoda, but they all sound pretty silly. Like, move the ship, you will. That wasn't good at all. But there are other impressions I do well. You'll just have to take my word for it tonight. No, I probably shouldn't be doing them on a scratchy throat. I think that's the end of the show. Or am I about to cut off a super chat that's trying to come in this second? I don't know. I don't think so. Looks like it's over. It's all over. Alexa, stop. Thank you, but no. I think she was about to play the song I just started singing, though. It's all over, but the crying. That sounds like my Valentine's Day. The show's all over. Now begins the crying. Some more have come in real quick. I killed Earl. You don't mess with this person. They'll kill you. Happy Valentine's Day. F you, Jimmy. Happy Valentine's Day to you, Earl Killer, as well. This is one of those awkward moments where I have to remind myself not to say a person's name because I don't think I killed Earl goes by their name publicly online. And so it's one of those weird ones where it's like, I know now, but I don't, where you almost slip. Thank you very much, Henrietta. Her name is not Henrietta, unless the name that I think is her name is fake and she's actually called Henrietta, which would be, wow, incredible. Anyway, also known as says, thank you. I was so focused on the fact that it hurt that I didn't think about why. If there's one silver lining to having to feel all of this after leaving religion, it's that I'm no longer afraid that she's in hell. Yeah, first of all, that is definitely a win. But I get what you're saying. Like, you don't think about why it hurts. You just think about that you don't want to be hurting anymore. But just ask that's the only question. Why should or shouldn't this hurt? How should it feel to lose somebody? It should fucking devastate you. Wait, Dylan wants to debate me on something? Yeah, I don't care if you call, but I'll debate anybody on anything. I'll do it all the time. What do we disagree on, Dylan? Tell me. I'll wait. unironically doxxed. It would have been funny. It's that, isn't it, Earl? Henrietta. I went with a name that I don't think anybody's been named in fucking 40 years, at least. 40 years. Man, I just realized how old I am. To suggest that 40 years is when the last time it was used would suggest that there were 8-year-olds or 7-year-olds. I'm turning 33 in 2 weeks. That there were 7-year-olds when I was born named Henrietta. And I think it was at least a generation or two before that it would have been popular. So yeah. Self-diagnosis. I'd recommend you don't call it on that one. I am not pro what most people refer to as self-diagnosis. However, I am pro people having access to resources if a soft sort of self-diagnosis is the only thing they have access to, so that they can start doing the work and the treatment. However, TikTok has ginormous representations. All the arguments I ever need for why we shouldn't allow self-diagnosis is all the fucking dipshits trying to convince everyone that to be autistic means to talk like a baby and rub your face on blankies. It makes me want to fucking jump through the screen, and we shouldn't. Self-diagnosis. If a therapist shouldn't diagnose themselves, a layperson definitely shouldn't. We'll just leave it at that. I'd recommend you don't call, because I think our friendship will be affected by how I won't hate you anymore, but how direct I am about it. Few people tend to not take personally. No, it's not my birthday yet. It's weeks away. Let's see. Find somebody else on your behalf. I like you too much, Dylan. I don't want to risk making you feel like I have a personal grudge with you. Yeah. All right. Well, I left some space open there for if anything else wanted to. Anyway, somebody mentioned, what's the only thing that's holding you back from becoming a patron? That I'm not pro self-diagnosis? Well, that's weird. Go ahead. The concept of I'm not pro self-diagnosis is I am not pro people saying they have a condition with which they haven't been diagnosed if they don't have the ability to do it, if they don't have the background to do so. And even when you do have the background to do so, you're not supposed to. Therapists or psychiatrists, rather, are told not to self-diagnose. Self-diagnosis and telling people I have this is not something that is tenable and has now been utterly, entirely abused and is harming the communities of the people with those diagnoses by people representing. And some of these people have become very popular. For example, DID in years past have been entirely abused by basically people who made it into a cartoony TV show kind of fun thing and became extremely popular on platforms. And it's fucking gross. And I'm directly affected by autism. But again, full resources should be available. If you suspect you have it, you've done some of the pre-screening stuff, you look at it and you look into it, full resources for you to do what you need to do to get past the ways in which this thing, which is technically called a disorder, is affecting your life, and the things to work on that should be available for free to everyone. I've also noticed the number of people who want to self-diagnose and then not treat, but be accommodated and have other people treat them a certain way, but not also do the work. That's another problem with the whole thing. And so if that's the reason that's holding you back from becoming a Patreon, fine. But from my perspective, I'm not telling you should become a patron. Anybody who wants to become a patron, patreon.com, call the line. We're doing a thing with Forrest this week. But if that's the thing keeping you back, I'm not going to change on it because I am worried about the harm. This wasn't Dylan who said that, by the way. It was somebody else. I'm worried about the harm that is causing. Because I'm not gonna do the conversation and debate now between me and the live chat is putting in. It's already been. I was open to the idea when it was first talked about and for the reasons talked about. But when it's about resources and treatment resources, which I think should be available to anybody anyway, there's no longer a reason to need it, especially amongst the abuse that it has clearly suffered. So it was already shaky on whether it was necessary before. Now Now we just need to advocate for resources free for everybody and then healthcare for free for everybody. That nobody has to self-diagnose because everybody has access to it all. Yes, OCD people are really getting, so you're not just getting, self-diagnosed with OCD when they really have OCPD. It's worse than that. People who just think anything is OCD. OCD is one of the most wrongly used fucking thing. Like, oh, I was being really OCD about such and such, as though OCD is simply just a symptom of like, of temporary neurosis or obsession. It's fucking gross. Fucking gross. No, I'm not talking about in what way would you think I was talking about Dylan? No. Okay, I see. There's a Dylan in the chat is who I am speaking about. Dylan Moldova was not somebody I was speaking about at all. You're thinking of, I'm trying to remember, I know this name. But Dylan in the chat is not Dylan Moldova, nor was I speaking about Dylan Moldova. I feel like that's a reference to a sports thing that was happening. Yeah, the powerlifting thing. Anyway, that's a totally different thing, and I'm definitely not speaking to trans issues if I'm talking about mental health care. All right, well, anyway, yeah, PTSD also used super badly. Also, so here's another fucking thing. If you don't have an expert involved, how many people would have diagnosed themselves with something on autism or ADHD spectrum or schizophrenia or DID 10 years ago and would have not seen the things that have advanced since then, and that it turns out a ton of people who were being treated for things like that in the past were actually experiencing CPTSD. Medicine and access to expert care isn't just about what is understood now, but also how it develops. And if treatment of these people is the thing that's the number one priority, to then just ignore the experts on a lot of stuff. Again, in a scenario where you're not supposed to diagnose yourself, let alone other people, it's not just, I can't even say it's just slippery slope, because the slope has already been slipped. It's already happened, and it's been really fucking with people's worlds. Again, I'm particularly bitter about autistic representation on social media right now, and people basically saying to be autistic is to basically have the mind of a preteen or an infant, or somewhere between 2 and 13 years old. And the overuse of the term stimming, which people are using a lot to describe very pleasant things or fun little quirky things, which as an actual thing is very painful for a lot of people. So anyway, that's the whole, whatever. Well, that doesn't seem true. All right, Dylan, I got to stop looking at your chats, because you said very few autistic people don't have CPTSD. That seems like that would suggest the possible relation that autism is caused by CPTSD, or I suppose vice versa, which would be hard to defend either direction, unless you're saying it's more like the way that trans people have a higher level of suicidality because they're greeted by a hostile. If you're saying that CPTSD is because of autism being greeted with hostility, then I guess I could kind of see that. Let's see. Oh, I see. So Joe Hobson says it was virtual. We're not that sexy. So it was within the fantasy of the game, some fucking went on, but it didn't turn into I totally misinterpreted it. Yes, people representing DID and Tourette's right now are also like, I feel very sorry for people who have Tourette's, because it's a super serious, high level of suffering causing condition, and straight up, people are fucking fake. There are people faking that shit. I'm not going to, it might be blah, 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 blah. I'm going to trust the experts and the people with verified DID the lives are becoming nightmares because of people who are fucking faking that shit. It is fucking rough. Anyway, I'm not mad at you, Dylan. It's all good. I'm probably not going to engage with you tonight on it if you're trying to have a DM debate tonight. But we can talk about it more later. I can't imagine. You have to understand, Dylan. I've had this argument with people whose stakes in the matter are quite a bit higher than yours. And I don't think you'll bring more than they brought to the argument. So this is why I say I'm reluctant, because I just can't visualize some way you're going to change my mind, but I can easily visualize a way you're mad at how much I will seem dismissive. But I could be wrong. Anyway, this is why I'm cautious with certain types of conversations with people I like and or have as friends, because my intentions are rarely matter. Anyway, I'm going to end the show the way I like to end the show. And you know the way I like to end the show? I like to, as the outro, use the intro. Good night, everybody. This was Cus I Wanna. Bum, bum, bum.